There we go. Testing, 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 testing. Mute you. Do 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 do. All right, so let's get this shit started. Well, I had an eventful time today. Well, actually yesterday. I'm not going to mention any spoilers or anything like that. Or was it yesterday? It was Thursday. I'm tripping. This shit acting crazy. What are you doing? All right, so let me see your space. All right, cool. Oh, so this shit is slow or something's going on. Anyway, welcome to another edition of, well, I call it on YouTube the No Filter Podcast. Welcome to the No Filter Podcast. This is your host, Gamecast, and we are going to be talking about 3 topics today. First topic, let me just try to set the stage here. First topic is going to be emotional gaming moments. I know that's out of order. I better change that shit. But emotional gaming moments, and basically emotional gaming moments. I should have did that earlier. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to talk about the times where games had the most impact that you've ever experienced in any kind of media. So hopefully we get some listeners and participants to talk about that as well. Second thing we're going to be talking about is what happened to Japanese developers. We had a conversation earlier in the week, and it was Western versus Eastern developers. And I had a gripe with where Japanese developers are going, and I'm going to talk about that later. And then, of course, we have our off-topic session here, which is usually talk about what was conspiracy theory like things. I probably should have said that because YouTube's gonna flame the shit out of me. I can leave that there. That's too much Aloy. But yeah, so that's what we are going to do. I'll leave it at the Matrix. Fuck it, since we're talking about reality. And that's how we're going to kick it off. Now, I've gone to see Spider-Man, I don't know, Far From Home or whatever the fuck it is called. I don't remember what it is. But I did go to see that movie. And without mentioning any spoilers, I'm going to give that movie an 8.5. I will say that the movie, just by nature, had a lot of fanfare. I mean, if you've seen the trailers, you know what I'm talking about. But it wasn't written in a logical manner. It wasn't written in, how I put it, it was very sloppy writing, very, very sloppy writing in terms of how the storyline was going to go. Characters were kind of uncharacteristic. That was a really big issue. And they pulled it together at the end. And I appreciate what they've actually done to that movie in particular. So I'm gonna give that 8.5. My next movie that I'm actually gonna go out and see is what you see if you're on YouTube. You'll see the Twitter little window. That's gonna be The Matrix. What is it called again? Resurrections. Now I've seen reviews. Yo, what's going on, Jemai? I've seen reviews for The Matrix Revolutions, and it's probably going to be exactly what I thought. It's going to have the same situation as I would say the Spider-Man movie. Well, I can't remember that fucking name. It's too fucking long of a name to remember. But yeah, that's what I believe is going to happen. They are going to just go all out on nostalgia, put it that way, and then have you kind of go through there. I've seen a lot of material from The Matrix. Resurrections, and it didn't have the same feel as any of the movies in terms of like innovativeness. Now, the Wachowskis, there's only one of them working on this movie, and another writer or something like that. So I'm not. It doesn't have the feeling. I think you want to need both of those siblings to actually work on that movie to make that work. But I'll still see it anyway. I mean, I have nothing fucking better to do. Like we're in this crazy ass pandemic as it is. So I'll go ahead and see the movie. I'll probably do a review on it. I'm thinking, possibly, maybe not. So anyway, to start off the first topic for today, which actually, let me go ahead and switcheroo this shit. It's going to be about the emotional gaming moments. Either really, well, I mean, I guess if you say something is emotional, you're going to automatically take it as, something to make you, like, I don't know, like cry or whatever the case is. And maybe not cry, but I could say, like, maybe get angry. I don't know. However way you want to put it, the emotional gaming moments. I figured this was going to be a cool topic in general. Did I fix that? Yeah, I did. I actually pitched. I was just thinking about this over time, and just kind of looking at my backlog, and I've seen like a shit ton of just games that really had me, like really, really had me like wow, So I actually go to the first bit, the first thing that made me like really like floored and made me feel some type of way. And honestly, this was not going to be like a heartstrings type pull thing. It's going to be the first time I experienced a 3D game. And the first 3D game that I've experienced in its rightful place was actually, which was pretty cool, was Wave Race 64. I have this thing with water in video games that it needs to look good. It needs to function like water and everything. I always wanted, it was funny because I always wanted it to be in like a regular game to have all of those fucking waves. Oh man, that would have been so cool. But that was my first time actually experiencing like 3D. I was like, what the fuck? And then I wasn't a big fan of Zelda at the time because I've already experienced multiple 3D games. So it was like, So I had that situation going on. And this shit is spazzing. Okay, cool. And that's what ended up happening. And it's funny because I'm a PlayStation person, if you already know who I am, but most of my 3D experiences before I got into PlayStation was on the N64. But by the time I actually was done when I got to the PlayStation, I was playing 3D games. Zelda wasn't that impressive to me. I think the only thing that they really had that was really impressive was the day and night cycles, which I'm still like really just ridiculously. I desire that in most of the games. So thought-provoking things also would lend itself to be something that would be an emotional impact. But when I finally got my PlayStation by doing a shit ton of chores at my uncle's house, the first game that I played on that system was Tekken 2. That type of emotion that gave me was like basically exhilarating. I've never seen that. Like I played a little bit of Street Fighter back in the day, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Played a little bit of Street Fighter. I thought that was pretty cool. There were sprites. That was the best thing that we had back in the 90s, early 90s. And then you have this game called Tekken, which was 3D. I played at their arcade Virtual Fighter, but this was like an arcade session in your fucking house. Although those graphics were ugly as sin, it really, I was like, holy shit, that shit was really fucking awesome. I really liked the shit. So eventually, that's how I felt. I was like, Tekken was really cool. It gave you a punch. I remember picking Paul Phoenix, and the way that he fucking punches somebody, bam, and they just roll across the fucking stage. That shit was fucking fire at the time. It was fire. Absolutely great. Then I played Crash Bandicoot. That didn't make me feel anything, to be honest. I really didn't feel shit about Crash Bandicoot. It was a nice looking game, but after playing Mario 64, which is where I was getting all these emotions, I felt nostalgia even though I played the game for the first time when I played in Mario 64. So that game, even though to me, I think it looks better than Mario 64, wasn't as impressive because you couldn't turn the camera around. That was pretty trashy to me. But it's just the gameplay was too simplistic for me. You know what I mean? I wanted 3D environments when I first started playing video games, and to me, it just wasn't hitting. It wasn't hitting the way I wanted it. But then I got a hold of Tomb Raider. This is back in '97, and the emotional moments that I had by playing that, it wasn't necessarily put on by the game. It was finally hitting that we made it. We have a 3D environment, and it wasn't like bottomless pits all over the place. And everything that you've done had its consequences. That shit was so fucking crazy to me. That was an amazing thing. It was amazing. You know, if you climbed too high, you fell. That was the end of your ass. That's period. You know what I'm saying? Emotional. That game scared the shit out of me. There was a lot of places in there, like, remember the third level in Tomb Raider 1, which was called the Lost Valley. And the lead up to you getting to the T-Rex was unreal. It was masterclass type shit. You get there and you pretty much, you have this waterfall. And this waterfall at the top, you're at the top of the waterfall and all the little rocks and caves up there. You look down and you see where the water is collecting. So it's like a pool of water with the waterfall. And you're looking like, well, what is this level going to fucking bring? I don't know what this is going to bring. What type of level it is. And I'm looking at the fucking waterfall. And so I was like, well, there's no choice. I guess I can kind of like carefully go down. But I was like, fuck it. There's no consequence for you, falling in the water in this game. So I'm just going to do a run and jump. And then as I was jumping, I think it was 2 or 3 wolves at the bottom of that bitch. And I'm thinking, like, it's going to take her time to, and there was too, by the way, but I was going to aggro them by jumping into the water, which I didn't know that terminology back then. But I was like, it's going to take me some fucking time to climb out of the fucking water, and they're going to rip me to fucking shreds. So I was like, holy shit. So I do a run and jump. What's going on, Hector? I do a run and jump and totally jumped into the water, nailed the hell out of it, right? And that was fine. And just like I would imagine, as soon as I tried to get out the water, the wolves were fucking on me. They're on me. So it was pretty crazy. So I did a couple of backflips and shit like that. I made it, fine, whatever. And then you go into this other area, which they had a couple more wolves in there. So I took care of them, and then you had to climb up. So when I climbed up, the first thing that I seen was a skeleton with a health pack. And I'm like, well, okay, what the fuck's this? The wolves so I get there and I'm like, okay, so let me think they're about on this. Me. So it was pretty crazy. Get into I did a couple of and the first thing that you see is these huge fucking footprints, which was crazy. Give me 1 second. Let me just take a look to see if I can. They're on me. So it was pretty crazy. I did a couple of and the first thing that you see is these huge fucking fingerprints. Okay, cool. So it's working. Give me 1 second. Let me just take a look. It's working. It's working. My bad. Okay, let me see that control. Okay, cool. Function. Okay, mute. Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure it was working. So either way, I get there and you see like these huge fucking like these fucking dinosaur like footprints, and then the velociraptor is coming through the fucking fog at the other end, and I'm like, okay, so what we doing now? What the fuck are we doing now? What we doing, game? So I did my little flips. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little edgy. So I killed the 2 velociraptors, and I see like this overhanging bridge, and I didn't look at the back of it or anything. I didn't think too much of the jewel case or whatever, which they said that you can fight T-Rexes in there. I didn't pay attention to the shit. And I see this bridge, the middle of the bridge has been broken by something, like something walked through it. And you see all these little pieces of the bridge. And I'm thinking, And then all of a sudden they play this most epic fucking music I've ever fucking heard. It was really, really ridiculous music. And they're going in the violins and the hits and the fucking thing. And this T-Rex comes flying out of the fucking darkness. Man, those feelings were absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And then that's kind of started me with the action adventure. Then having that feeling of success when you actually emotional experiences. You dodging these boulders and spikes and shit like that, and your adrenaline is going. But then if you were taking that away, you wanted to have like more of a chill moment. There were a lot of racers back then. You got Wipeout and stuff like that. And again, with the fucking exhilaration, you're like, you're flying through the fucking level and shit like that, which is pretty fucking cool. So you're like all the way nervous. You're like, holy shit. You know what I'm saying? So that's fucking cool. So that right there was pretty amazing or whatever the case is. So you have that great sense of speed. I asked my sister if she can purchase Tomb Raider 3 at the time, and she didn't understand anything about video games. So she just automatically assumed that if it was a female on a box, then 9 times out of 10, it didn't matter. And I'm like, bitch. But she did what she did. She bought me Parasite Eve. They had a demo of, what do you call it? Xenogears. Xenogears came in there. I ended up liking RPGs because of Parasite Eve. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm playing that. I didn't really play that many games back then, to be honest with you. I didn't have that much money, or I wasn't playing that many games. But Xenogears allowed me to kind of feel the sense of community. Like when you go in there and you're like, holy shit, you got a whole town. And everybody in this town, at least in my head, the illusion was everybody had their own personality and lives, and they go to bed and they wake up and they do whatever the case is. Of course, it was a whole illusion, but it gave me, it just felt like family when I played that game. And then they ripped that shit from you at the beginning of the game. You had this one short dude that had an attitude. I guess he had like Napoleon complex. And then you had like when you go outside, you have like the fucking plants. You know what I mean? Not plants, but like the farmlands and shit like that. You didn't want to like step on any kind of food, or else they'll ring you for that shit. But anyway, moving on to the PS2, my emotional times with the PS2. Oh man. The first time, I played Driver. Let me go back a little bit. I played Driver. That was an open world game that I don't know how they were able to do that shit on PS1. But I remember waiting for Driver 3 because I was a big fan of that. And I used to go to my friend's house and play Grand Theft Auto 2 on his PC. And I was like, that shit's corny. It looks video gamey. I like realistic stuff. And to this day, I still like realistic shit. That hasn't changed. But when we got to the PS2, it wasn't that many games out. I played a demo of Ico. And to me, that didn't have the emotional connection that I thought it was going to have. I thought it was going to be really cool, like Tomb Raider. I just couldn't get it. I beat it. I beat it several times, but I just couldn't dig it. I couldn't get in there and really experience it the way that I was supposed to experience it, which was unfortunate. Because it played a lot like Tomb Raider, and it was a Japanese culture that I just wasn't accustomed to. I played a demo that was Star Wars. That was pretty cool. It was the emotional impact, again, at the launch of the PlayStation 2 wasn't really the games. It was just having no fog and that kind of crazy ass fidelity. That was beyond me. And I remember... what was the game that I played? Oh, fucking everyone was kind of talking about Grand Theft Auto. They said it was a lot like Driver. I had nothing else to play at the time. I played Jack and Dexter. That game to me was not that good. It was very, the controls were tight. The graphics were tight. It just, to me, it was open world. It was no loading, but you can only go but a path, which I wasn't really down for. So I hear this talk about Grand Theft Auto. I think I've seen commercials and shit like that. So I went to Blockbuster and actually rented it. And I rented the game. And if you ever played Driver 2 on the PlayStation 1, you couldn't run over people. They would dodge out the way immediately. You know what I'm saying? And you couldn't cause any bodily harm to anybody on the road. So I popped the game in. The graphics were okay. It was better than anything that I've played on PS1. And so the thing blew up. The police car blew up. You escape, and you had to take this guy to his hideout. And I remember I was having so much trouble like grasping a 3D environment. I was like, this shit is so fucking difficult to drive into. And on top of it, they sprinkle some fucking rain on all over it. And I'm like, man, this ain't it, man. Like I can't wrap my fucking brain around this shit. I really couldn't. I couldn't do it. And lo and behold, I hope this isn't playing. Is it muted? Yeah, it's muted. Lo and behold, I ran over somebody. And I'm not going to lie to you. I felt fucking terrible. I felt terrible for running someone over. It's just the crunch and the way that my car like popped over the body. I was like, oh, this is a little bit too much. All the blood started pooling under the person. I felt bad. That was a really emotional time for me. I felt absolutely shitty. I felt shitty for that. And you had all these people come congregate, and there was no police at the time. They didn't see it. But yeah, like the prostitute, the pimp, and everybody. And he was like, "You're a crazy bitch." You know, it was like, man, they made you feel terrible for running a motherfucker over. Like I wasn't with it. I wasn't with running somebody the fuck over. That wasn't my stilo, man. But then as you play the game, you start getting used to that shit. These police it just, to me, I looked at it less like a simulator, more like The Matrix, especially since The Matrix came out and everybody was probably watching that movie like 18, 30, 40 fucking times, you know what I mean, a year. So I was one of those people that did that shit. And I was like, this is like it rained, it got sunny, the ground got slippery, you know what I'm saying? It was foggy at some points. It was an amazing fucking experience. And from that point on, I wanted every game to be that way. One of the problems was, because I have a big affinity for water, is that the water, you couldn't swim. You couldn't swim in that game. But you could in Metal Gear Solid 2. And I remember not liking that game for a long fucking time. I was like, man, this shit is so pretentious. This whole game. It's like trying to be a movie and you're not a movie. Kojima, go over there and sit down. So I did like Konami. And when I was playing, I like Konami stuff. I liked past tense Konami stuff. And I ended up picking up Silent Hill. I always wanted to play that shit on the PS1. So I was like, let me see what the PS2 could do. And they were like, for the first time, they didn't need fog to obscure the environments. They're doing it deliberately. And so, like, I'm playing this shit. I'm not going to spoil the game, but I can tell you right now, like, the onset of depression was real after beating that game. I didn't want to play anything for a couple of days after being, like, 13 years old, 12, 13, 14. And experiencing what the fuck that was. Because that game isn't about being scared. That game is wholly about psychological, like, fucking warfare. That game is all sorts of twisted. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for something like that. And the stuff that happened at that game, I was like, oh no. I was depressed. I'm not going to lie to you. That game made me depressed because it took me to a place where I didn't want to be. Too many realizations and revelations that I wasn't ready to handle. But it was like masochistic in a sense, because I was like, even though I don't like it, I still want to experience that. So over and over, the PlayStation 2 created, like, each year created these crazy ass, like, fucking heavily emotional experiences. I finally got around to playing Metal Gear Solid 3 and Metal Gear Solid 2. And that kind of showed me what a government could be capable of doing. You know, I know it's a video game, but shit, it was just like the type of shit that what they ended up doing at the end of the game, let alone the predictions that they made that are coming true today. Like, it's still coming true. Even with fucking, like, they say nanomachines and AI, that's some real shit in Metal Gear Solid. In Metal Gear Solid, that is some real shit within that series. That is fucking real. That we're dealing with. You know, which we'll talk about at our on our off topic section. But like, it opened my mind to things that I was like, what the fuck? It would sound funny back then talking about AI when I was playing Metal Gear Solid 2. AI was taking over the world and shit like that. That sounds funny as hell. I was like, well, okay. I mean, we got flying fucking cars, and then we're living in the time now where we have nothing but fucking AI running our shit. You know, telling us what to read and shit like that, and how to think. Essentially, I mean, you got deep learning that could change someone's fucking face. You can make somebody deep fakes. It's crazy. I just would have never fucking assumed or guessed that shit. It's insane. But it made me a fan. You know, I could tell you that. And at the time when I played Metal Gear Solid 2, I needed something to be a little bit more lighthearted, and I ended up playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And it was just good. It's weird. I don't know what causes me to want to live there, but I wanted to live in Florida. Say I live near New York. And so to me, it was just like, okay, you know, Philadelphia, New York and shit like that. I was like, okay, but to go down to a tropical place, that was surreal to me. I mean, at the time it looked photorealistic. I was like, what the fuck? And I was just enamored with it. And then on top of it, they're playing real songs like Billie Jean and shit like that. It was one of the most euphoric feelings ever that I could have ever experienced. And towards the end of the PlayStation 2's life cycle, I've ended up playing a game that did make me want to cry as a grown ass man. At the time, I was already graduated high school, and I played Shadow of the Colossus. See, when you play that game, you don't really think too much about that shit. You just kind of be like, well, it's just Shadow of the Colossus. Fuck it. You know what I mean? It's about you climbing down, what do you call it? The Colossus. And that game is so much deeper than what I've ever imagined that game to be. I mean, it was the first game that I've played that had you in an ambiguous state that you don't really know if that was the right decision or not. I'm like, what the fuck? But that kind of wrapped up PS2's life cycle. I mean, PS3, in terms of their emotional, moments, I can talk about racing games and how that felt. I mean, it was exhilarating to play MotorStorm, all the MotorStorm games. It was exhilarating to kind of feel bad for the Hellgas as you ripped them the fuck apart when you were shooting. That was pretty fucking crazy. It's funny. One of my biggest emotional moments in PS3 life cycle was actually PlayStation Home. I met so many good people there. There's so many, just the music that they had in there. It was so many things that made me, I associate with it. They had, every time Christmas came, they had the whole Santa Claus and the snow and all this other stuff. It was really surreal. I mean, I really, to this day, I hope that they bring that shit back. But PlayStation Home was definitely a big part of how I felt with PS3. And then to wrap it up, because there wasn't really that many emotional games in terms of something that really pulled at the heartstrings, I played The Last of Us Part 1. And that game signified storylines being taken seriously and really, really fucking, tackling stuff that not that many movies really kind of go into, you know what I mean? A little girl dying, that was brutal. Just how the brutality of everybody in that environment, in that world, when you take away the social constructs, how fucked up people can be. That was a revelation. Moving to PS4. Let me think here. To be honest with you, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older I don't know. Is it? It could be because I'm getting older. Maybe, maybe not. But I can tell you right now, not that many emotional things going on with that, man. Like it wasn't that many. Um, if I think about it, even when I played Horizon, that didn't pull any kind of emotional. It was just graphics, really. And the storyline was really good though too, but it wasn't to the point where I was just like, holy shit, you know what I'm saying? Or felt any kind of way. Oh, you know what? Actually, God of War. God of War was really, really cool. When I first played God of War, I really thought to myself, I was like, mm, I was like, I can't. I was so stuck on it being like a different God of War that I didn't really give the storyline a chance. And I decided to play it again just to kind of, it was nothing to play at the time. So I ended up playing the game, and a lot of the stuff that I was going through as an adult, you can kind of clearly see. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, what the fuck? Even with the Uncharted 4, I didn't really like the way that kind of vibe. But to me, God of War was just, it reminded me of me. Like Atreus reminded me of me. I am a super empathetic person. You know what I mean? Like I really feel for a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have. So it was like looking at the world through a glass or through rose tinted glasses. And then the older me was represented as Kratos and how fucked up the world could be. It was just really that dichotomy of young Josh versus older Josh that really made that game. That made that game it for me. Spider-Man was pretty cool. They had some pulling the heartstring moments, but it wasn't anywhere near to me God of War in terms of how the story made me feel personally. You could tell that God of War was a definite personal story. And I hope honestly, moving to the PS5, the only emotional event that I had was playing Returnal. It was playing Returnal and all the kind of struggles with that type. I'm not sure if it's mental ill. You never quite know. But the type of feeling that I got, the emotional roller coaster for that game was confusion, and just being in your own delusion, possibly. I feel like that was pretty fucking powerful as well. And let alone you playing the fucking game and it played so well. So I just hope they can. I don't look at Horizon Forbidden West as going to be that emotional type game. I don't really see that as an emotional type game. I just don't. I don't see it. I think it's gonna be a nice, fun little thing. It's gonna have a deep storyline that explains the lore, and I think that's about as far as it will go. Which I'm not asking for anything more than that. You know what I'm saying? But it's not gonna be one of those. It's not going to be one of those situations where God of War. I'm sorry. Horizon is going to be one of those emotional, pulling the heartstrings moment. I can't see it personally. I can't see it. So hopefully we have some more emotional things. I think Sony ended up saying that they wanted emotional stuff because that kind of helps you to relate to the game and have a more personal connection with it. I'm more of a esoteric, philosophers type situation. Like I wish kind of like, and we better go to the second topic too. We better go on there because that's one of the things I want to kind of talk about, which is, what the fuck happened to Japanese developers, man? I was talking about Horizon. And what ended up happening with Horizon, this is the thing that kind of sucked with Horizon, right? Not Horizon, I'm sorry, Metal Gear Solid, is that Metal Gear Solid had one of the most profound storylines for basically all three of those, the trilogy. And what the Japanese would typically do when they make a game, right, is they will find ways around the weaknesses in their consoles, which gave way to new genres. You look at Resident Evil, they wanted to make a, big ass, city. You couldn't do it. So they had to use like pre-rendered backgrounds and they had a mixture of the characters and stuff like that. So it was one of those situations where it was, they done things to overcome. They had to make the gameplay to overcome the limitations for the console, which was interesting. And I had this thing during the middle of the week where I was talking about the Japanese and how they make games nowadays, and people were pissed off. You know, they were saying that the Western don't have that kind of flair and stuff like that. And I feel like after the PlayStation 2 in that generation, Japanese games just I tell you what, look at a fighting game, right? And I'll look at Tekken. I was talking to one of my friends about this shit too. So if you look at Tekken, right? When they first announced Tekken, it was groundbreaking because it was a 3D. It was a 3D experience that was like an arcade situation. So we didn't even have 3D shit anyway to begin with. But when you see it, the jump from Tekken 1 to 2 was astronomical. And you can kind of understand that because it was like they weren't sure if it was going to land. So they were just going to try to get the basics correct. And, you know, if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There were a lot of fighting games back then that didn't make it in the PS1 day, 3D or otherwise. So fine. But when they made Tekken 2, the graphics were so crazily, and just everything, just the fighting engine and everything else was crazy. And then they upped the ante and made Tekken 3, which they had bowling. They had all sorts of crazy shit in that game. And it looked like 2-3 times better than its predecessor. The same thing with Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo was one of its first games to pioneer sim racing. And then the second one took it a step way beyond what the PS1 was normally capable of doing. While still being a simulator, you could switch out the parts and stuff like that. That was really fucking cool. And then they took it a step even further when they came to the new generation, which was PS2, and they made it look like it was real. The same thing with Tekken Tag. It looked awesome. But then after PS2, Tekken basically looked almost like it just looked like a higher res PS2 game. And they kept most of the animations. They didn't even try to like spruce it up a little bit and still kept the frame data and active frames and all that stuff. They just kind of like threw that shit out there. And one could argue, yeah, the numbers were dropping, you know what I mean, in terms of sales. So they didn't want to commit to it, you know what I'm saying? Even if you look at, okay, so look at this, right? Number one, they were pumping out games left and right. And I get that the more detail you have, you know, I get that part. I totally understand it. I get it. But you look at Final Fantasy, they created a whole fucking genre that looked the way that it did and that all the other stuff. Then they made Final Fantasy X and then Final Fantasy 12. And just even in Final Fantasy 11, they made that into like an RPG, like an online RPG on the PS2. And then you get to the PS3 and it's like you can't even finish your projects. And the Western demographic or the Western developers are catching up to your graphic prowess. They're making leaps and bounds graphically, whereas the Japanese just aren't. It's very up-resed situations to me. And to me, it's unfortunate that they've done that. I don't know what's causing the Japanese. Even now, like I'll be hard pressed, and you guys can leave it in the comments. I'll be hard pressed to see what would be a Japanese game that rivals without using the Unreal Engine, have his own engine. Even if I say that, you know what, I'll throw it in there. That rivals stuff like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Origins and Horizon and The Witcher and stuff like that. What Japanese game do you see rivaling that? Because somebody's going to mention Yakuza, right? Yakuza doesn't have day and night cycles. Yakuza has very simplistic crowd AI. You know what I'm saying? And Yakuza has been Yakuza for a while. It's basically Shenmue, and that's how that was. And I'm not saying that the Western developers are impervious to any type of degradation of quality. That's not what I'm saying. But like at the end of the day, it's crazy that the Japanese used to be complete pioneers. Like everybody trailed them, except for Rare, actually. Rare, that was purchased by Microsoft. They were the only ones that were keeping up with the Japanese and Naughty Dog, really. Everybody else was struggling like really hard. And then it's like when you give somebody the freedom to do whatever they wanted to do, it's like the Japanese were having trouble. I'm not going through the Discord though, Jemiah. You have to go through Twitter. You could just hop in on Twitter on the spaces or whatever the case is, and then it should be good. Let me move this up here. I didn't realize that this was going to look like that. Let me shrink it here. Cool. Yeah, once you jump into the spaces, I'll you can just chat in there. Let's leave that there. But yeah, that was one of the things that I was like, what the fuck? You know, I don't know. Like you look at CD Projekt Red and Naughty Dog and, you know, Guerrilla Games and to an extent, Ubisoft, you know what I'm saying? Rockstar, all these guys are outstripping the fuck out of the Japanese in terms of what they do. A lot of the Japanese games, they've been doing the same thing for a very long time. You know what I mean? Yeah, people were mentioning Tales of Arise, and that looks like it could be done on a handheld, honestly. I've seen that type of game before handled by the Japanese, and I know people will get like pissed off with me mentioning that shit. And it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate that people will be upset about that. But I mean, let's not lie to ourselves. Put it that way. I don't want to lie and say that, you know, that the Japanese are still at it. Even Nintendo fell from their grace. They just recently made that Zelda game. Like, you know, I don't know, it has to be something graphically that is causing them to be like having issues with making their games. I feel like honestly, what ended up happening with the generation of the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and you had like real time, you basically had programmable shaders, and you had a lot of the stuff handed to you where the Japanese weren't making their own custom graphic features. It was already handed to them. So it's like, I mean, what the fuck else to do? Like when you give people freedom, sometimes that could be detrimental because it's like, I don't know what to do at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what to do at this point. Sometimes you can have an idea, and this is coming from me, kind of making music. Sometimes you can have an idea, and that idea sounds good in your head until you start putting that out into the world, and it's like not as good as you thought it was. It's too all over the place. So you got situations like that, which absolutely sucks. That really is garbage. As an artist, even when you draw, sometimes you were like, oh, this would be cool. This character had this character had that, and you start drawing it, and it looks thrown together or just cumbersome and stuff like that. So it's like they were their best when there were limitations, and then you taking those limitations away, and it's too much freedom, and their brains are all over the place. It's like, I can do this, and I don't know what to do first or what to do at all is what I kind of see how they're operating. That's what I'm saying. So I would love to see, that's not what I want. I want aspirin. Vitamin C pill. I would love to see, and this is because I was missing sleep, low key, high key, low key. I would love to see the Japanese return to form and make stuff like Shadow of the Colossus. Same thing with Shadow of the Colossus too. That was a fucking out of all the limitations. People would say that they pushed the boundaries of the PS2. They did push the boundaries of the PS2. The PS2 was able. The PS2 was able to do really good motion blur. A lot of, overdraw, which is transparencies. So they had furry ass characters and shit like that. It could calculate polygons really well. So they had a lot of inverse kinematics, and you can, your body is flopping around and shit like that. All of that shit was All that shit was great. And I invited you, Jemiah, if you're in here. All that was awesome. But then when they had the freedom to do what they wanted to do, The Last Guardian wasn't a focused game. It's like I feel like the Japanese either default to what they've always known and just kind of sit there and like, oh fuck, I'm just gonna make a better looking one, or just use the fucking presets and just have the old tried and true gameplay, or their games are just not focused. What do you think about that, Jamar?
About the Japanese not like, is my mic good? Because I have a shitty ass headset.
No, it's just your shitty ass voice. No, you sound raspy for some reason though.
All right. So you were saying like the Japanese developers have fallen off basically compared to the Western devs.
I would say so, especially technologically. To me, they feel like they fell off. I haven't been wowed by them in like 10 years. Like Final Fantasy is using a Western engine, so it's like, and they're not even using that to its full degree, because you have Days Gone, which is a fully open world game. You have that going on, right? And then you have what do you call it? The fucking Final Fantasy, and it's still limited. So to me, it's like it's weird that's going on. Yeah, what do you think? I'm talking too much.
No, I mean, I just think that the Japanese developers, like you said, they really haven't changed what they were doing. Like in the early days, JRPGs were like everywhere. You know what I mean? On PS2, like JRPGs really dominated the PS2, and a lot of consumers were into that. But I think as time went by, the consumers have shifted their focus on what type of games they like. More action RPGs, more like first person shooters. And the Japanese developers they don't really like make those type of games. You know what I mean? So like I'm playing Judgment right now. And like the reason why I never really even bought Judgment was because I really don't like the way Sega makes games.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean? Like Virtual Fighter, like the way Sega makes games, they're always super clunky. Like you play Judgment, right?
I've seen it being played, and it does look clunky. It looks clunky.
The game is like super clunky for some reason. Like
the way that he runs is almost like he's pivot, like he's on like a what do you call it? Like a pivot thing or whatever. It doesn't flow naturally. Like you play something like newer games, you know what I mean? The character's weight shifts and stuff. There's no shifting of the weight. It's very digital. I don't know.
Like every NPC you walk by, like they're like startled by you. You know, I'm like oh, like you like get pushed like 50 feet into the street. It's so weird the way the game plays, and it's just like I'm just not into that whole Sega style of gameplay. I mean, I'm playing the game now, but it's like it's just so clunky. And then even with like Final Fantasy, like they ended up switching it up more towards like they instead of making like a JRPG type of Final Fantasy, they made it more action based. You know what I mean? They made it more westernized. And I just think that
to accommodate what people will want. Yeah.
And I think that as far as their own audience goes, the Japanese audience have went towards mobile so hard that if Japanese developers are focusing on those type of mobile type of handheld games, they're not going to be making 3D AAA games that the Western audience likes anymore. So I think it's just like a perfect storm of their own core audience in Japan being more mobile based, more Nintendo Switch type of games instead of wanting some huge AAA, Halo type of game.
Let me give them the benefit of the doubt, right? So the mobile games that they played, and I personally don't know how I'm not exactly sure. Maybe you know more than me. I'll put it that way. Are they innovative? The cell phone games and shit like that?
I have 0 cell phone games on my phone. Like I don't play mobile games like at all.
Because I feel like even them, they have like a template that they go based off of, and it's basically like it's almost like the Dynasty Warriors type shit. It's like you can just put whatever skin you want and it's still the same game that they released back in 2001. Like, that was my biggest issue with the Japanese, and it's a shame because they've made so many different genres, especially like they would fucking knock it out the park if they made horror games. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at what Kojima Productions was capable of doing when they made PT, and and it was such a simple game, but it was just like, I don't know if they were. It's almost like the limitations like makes them better. And when you have a system that already have pre-canned, effects, it's like they don't know what to do. Like, they have no focus. You know what I mean? At least they can focus on the weaknesses and try to work around it. But now they can, for the most part, do what they need to do without too much thought. It's like they struggle with that to me. And I've noticed that with PS3. They have shaders and all the other stuff. It's like they struggle with it. And I'm so tired of like giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm sick of it. I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt anymore. It is what it is. To me personally, it's just, to me, it doesn't feel fresh. It doesn't.
We have games like what? Like I hate this. My phone is freaking like trying to turn itself off. But like yeah,
like
screen. I
was trying to do that shit either.
But like I think Nintendo, like, what's that? Was it Platinum? Is Platinum Games a Japanese company, right?
Yeah. They're from Capcom. I will say this: Capcom, they be doing their thing to a degree. I give it to them.
Like Capcom and Platinum, though, like Nier Automata has been real huge, has been real big for Japanese devs. Like, we have like those Nintendo based games, like what was that one game with the two people with the cord and with the chain or some shit? You know what I'm talking about? That one game.
Is it that most recent Switch game?
Yeah, like I think 6 was listening, but like Astro Link or some thing. Shit, Astro Chain, like.
Yeah, I sent him an invite.
Like those type of games have been big. You have the triangle strategy game. Before that, you had the Octopath Traveler. So like, there are some games that are still breaking through to the Western audiences, but I just feel like the Japanese have like, they make specific type of games and they haven't really deviated from those formulas. And I don't know if that's sustainable with the way the gaming sphere is today. You know what I'm saying?
But then you gotta look at it too. Can you blame them? Because the Japanese people get mad at Sony for like, well, how come you're not making more Japanese? Because the Japanese aren't buying it. You know what I mean? Like they don't want their own fucking games. You got Nintendo shit and they do gangbusters, but not other third-party games. Like even Bayonetta would never hold a candle to the sales of any first-person or first-party title. It just doesn't sell that well. It still was decent enough, but you had stuff like Final Fantasy that was sold like 4 or 5 million in Japan, and Metal Gear Solid sold like 3-4 million, and it doesn't do those numbers anymore. You know what I mean? I mean, people straight up just don't really want. The Japanese don't even want their own fucking games, to be honest. And I was thinking to myself, somebody told me this, and they showed me the statistics. Most people use a Switch like a console more so than they do a handheld. So if that's the case, people are at home playing the Nintendo games. And to me, it's like, well, what exactly? Like what? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know. Like I feel like the Japanese does well in the West because we haven't had it. We have an oversaturation of shooters and open world games and stuff like that. And it's not like they don't buy games. Ghost of Tsushima did well. It did very well in Japan, relatively, especially with Sony's first party games. They suck ass sales wise. And but I don't know. Like I want them to be as innovative as they used to be. Like when I see things like PT, and you didn't even shoot anything really. You just fucking walked in quirky shit like that, but high production values, even graphically. Now I know you're graphic. You're kind of leaning towards graphics. I mean, what do you think about the Japanese prowess in terms of technological feats?
Um, I mean, I can't really think of any crazy AAA Japanese games that they made. I mean, I'm
Right.
pretty sure they have the talent because if you look at like other Asian based games like Project Eve or
No, but it's not Chinese.
it's Korean. I think it's Korean or some
Korean.
shit or
Yeah, but they don't
Japanese.
count. But
Well,
they are. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know. No, I
I'm
know.
saying they can probably do it. It's just like I said, like when you have the PS5, even the PS5 and the Xbox selling like 1,000, a couple hundred consoles a fucking week or a month or whatever, like what's the point of making games to that scale? You get what I'm saying?
And
Like,
I guess they're afraid too that the Americans won't buy their shit either because that's where most of the stock is going to. And they're like, well, I don't want to take that risk and make a crazy ass fucking game. Like they can put more. I'm curious to see what that new Final Fantasy is going to be like too, because that's
Final Fantasy
looking.
16.
Yeah, that's looking. When I'm done with the spaces, I'm going to take a look and go back to see what the fuck was going on with that one. Because when I was looking at that shit, that was bloody. Not to say that it has to be bloody or anything like that, but that looked almost like an MMO type situation.
But if you look at what like Forspoken won't be like the next big AAA Japanese type of game. I mean, the team that's making Forspoken made Final Fantasy 15, and that game I don't know Final Fantasy 15. It felt so like just Final Fantasy. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? Like
wasn't it
I
a road?
didn't.
It was a road trip essentially, right?
I didn't finish it because I just didn't like it. I just couldn't. Like, it was just so annoying with the camping and shit. Like I just didn't like I just didn't like the menu system. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing was just so fucking convoluted and just discombobulated. I just was not having a good time playing Final Fantasy 15. Even though the combat was fucking fire, that was probably the best part of the whole game was just the straight fighting itself. You know what I mean? But all the other shit
There's some
was
pretty
just kind
wicked
of
ass
annoying.
monsters and shit like that. That shit looked like fire. The monsters that were in there, they look really nice.
Yeah, that's why I'm not worried about Forspoken because I've seen what they did with Final Fantasy 15. It's still a gorgeous game with fucking extremely fun combat. So I'm not really like worried about what they're gonna do. So I know they still have 6 months of production left on the game.
But when a
But
game goes gold, isn't it like 2 months before? So really, they only have 4 months because after the game goes gold, what I'm
after the game
saying?
goes gold, they're still gonna be making a day one patch. You know what I mean? They're still gonna be fixing
True. I
things.
see. You know what? This dates my age because you remember back in the day when the game went gold, that was fucking curtains.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
You're right. So even if something happened, they can work towards the fucking minute, really.
They can work up towards the launch day. Like
Yeah.
they didn't patch it. They
Days
didn't just
Gone did
patch
that
it.
shit too. Days Gone did that shit. Before the game even released, they were like, "Yo, download this patch." I'm like, "Damn."
Yeah.
So
So if we got Final
let's
Fantasy
see.
7 remake was just the last huge AAA like Japanese based developer game, which came to crazy reviews, sold a lot. People were very high up on that. So I think they can do it. I just think it depends on the studio, the will of the studio. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like I said, like for their own audience, and they're focusing more on their own audience and their own like Japanese territories and shit. They're not gonna be making fucking Horizon Forbidden West because when most of your people are playing on handhelds and Game Boys and shit, what do you
I,
really? Why would you really do all that? You know what I mean?
right, it'd be a waste of money. Chris, you could just speak, man. You could just jump in. It's not really, it's just casual conversation, really.
Yeah, I mean, there are like AAA Japanese games that look very well. Of course, the Square Enix Final Fantasy games. The Resident Evil games, I thought Resident Evil 2 looked amazing. The Capcom Monster Hunter looks good. Devil May Cry looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
So there are stuff, but a lot of the other ones, the reason why they don't look as good as a lot of the Western AAA games or the bigger Japanese AAA games is because of the budget. Since those games don't sell a whole lot, they don't put a whole lot of money into them, and so therefore, that kind of lacks the presentation, and that's really some of the main issues when it comes to the Japanese game industry. It's just Like what dude was
It's a
saying,
shame.
what the host was saying earlier about uh their even their own games don't sell a whole lot, over there. Some do, unless you're a Pokemon, Final Fantasy, or Dragon Quest, right? Like the other shit is really not selling that, all that hot. I think like Shin Megami Tensei 5, which is very Japanese centric turn based JRPG, like my game of the year, right? It's hardcore as shit, but I
I haven't
think
looked
I
into
I
that.
think over there it only sold like well, physical is like 140K the first week, and not
Uh,
including digital. But
mm,
Monster Hunter Rise will sell 2.1 million like 2 days
and
over
like,
there.
yeah.
In Japan.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Umar, yeah, Devil May Cry and yeah, that counts because it's an American. I mean, it's a Japanese developer. Continue, Chris. Sorry about that.
Yeah, not only that, but even from software as well, right? The Souls games and Elden Ring is going to be a huge, big budget AAA, you know, uh, Japanese RPG, but it's from software, so they have more of a Western style to it. Like the Souls are more centered around Western themes, right? But yeah, that's another one too, and of course Kojima is he's another one. So there are some out there, but those are usually the games that usually sell really well, especially worldwide and out here in the West and shit like that. They put more money into them. Resident Evil does well in the West. Final Fantasy does well in the West. All of the Kojima games do well in the West, so they put more money into them. You know what I mean?
You know, the funny thing is too. Well, I don't know how old you are in terms of, basically. Let me see what this person is. It's probably a troll. I'm getting ready to kick him out if he needs to. Um, I'm 36, going on 37. I remember the leaps and bounds that they made with Tekken 2, Tekken 3, and then Tekken Tag. It was so fucking crazy. Those leaps, you know what I'm saying? And then it just slowed to a crawl, which the entire gaming industry suffered during the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, and now that you kind of bring to my attention to me, us talking about this shit, it lets me know most likely that shit was budget related, and they don't want to, they can't, for their own survival and safety, they can't just throw a game out there and hope for the best. Like, even when you look at Horizon, it's still a Western RPG to a degree. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to sell. It's going to catch that wave. You know what I'm saying? In terms of the Souls games, they're reusing a lot of animations and shit like that too. But they already carved with a small budget their fan base, so they know there's a certain amount of money that they could expend to make that game, and it's been growing. So they can splurge a little bit. Yeah, they were using some of the animations and shit like that, but it's still an open world Souls game, no matter how you slice it. You know, I wanted to talk about the Forspoken situation too. Tekken used to push, yeah, it did. Yeah, Tekken used to push the hardware crazy, but I wanted to speak about Forspoken really quickly. And From Software, actually, just for a little bit before we go into my off topic. Um, People say that the Japanese can't do other cultures, right? That was the whole argument. But the Souls
Um,
game, yeah, go on.
well, no, we're Forspoken. I don't know. I didn't really get into all of that. It's because the writers are like white, like white Americans or white Westerners or whatever, and they're writing a character, who's a black chick or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with that. But then you have the Japanese developers, Luminous Productions, which they did work on Final Fantasy 15, but then they're working on this game, and to me it looks really dope. The more I see it, the more I like it. It could be cleaned up and polished here and there, but it looks pretty dynamic with its combat, the open world. I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, it just looks bland and empty." But to me, it's like the way they're building it is for traversal, like have like this wide open space to to use her powers and traverse in cool ways and stuff like that. So, but I don't know. What do
I
you
was
think,
one of the,
Jeremiah?
I mean, My thing is when like as far as like them doing other cultures, I think Amy Hennig is one of the writers on this game, right? I was looking at Google. Uh,
Yeah, it's Amy
Todd
Hennig
Todd
and Gary
Stashwick,
Whitta.
Allison Reimer, Amy Hennig, and Gary Whitta are the four writers, top writers built on the game. And also, like I said, like I was trying to tell Josh before in his YouTube comments, like she's out. She may be black, but she's also British. You know what I mean?
The
Like
culture is different.
she's not American black. She's British black, which is I have no clue how they live in England as far as black people goes. You know what I mean? They have a lot of immigrant type of culture, but like as far as just straight up being black and being British, I think you're just British at that point. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
like,
that's how it
Yeah,
is.
but
I got a couple
she's
friends.
playing a New Yorker though in the game.
is she playing a New Yorker or is she
Yeah,
just
Yeah,
yeah,
speaking for?
she's
yeah,
a New Yorker.
yeah.
My whole point for mentioning this is because
Does she
nobody.
have a New York accent? Because she doesn't.
No,
So she's talking regularly. And she has a British accent. That's her natural talking voice. So
she
she may
lost the
be.
British accent. She just talks regular, but there's no New York
New York.
because
Yeah, it doesn't sound.
she was near the Holland Tunnel. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely New York, and they said it multiple times.
No, I know
And
she's living in New York, but like, how many people that live in New York are actually from New York? Like, very little.
Nah, but
You know what I mean?
in the description, in one of their tweets, it says, play as Frey, a New Yorker going into the fantasy land. Like they said it themselves. Like she's a New Yorker, even though she don't sound like one.
I was
I
gonna
was
say
going.
like,
Yeah,
why
go
would
on.
they choose her to be? Why would they choose a British person to play an American New Yorker? Like,
They
Hold on, no, 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 but
I have
no,
to
no,
look
hold
into
on,
this.
Jemai. Come on, man. There's British actors that play American actors all the time, and they kill it. Like Idris Elba, where he did that cowboy movie, that motherfucker killed that shit.
No,
So
I get that,
if
but
you can
like
act, you can pull it off.
from what I've seen from her, like she doesn't have an accent. She doesn't sound like she's from New York. She doesn't have the mannerisms. She doesn't know the culture of New Yorkers. So that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
some actors are better trained, and then you also
yeah.
have. It's easier to make a movie or a TV show like The Wire. I think The Wire had a bunch of British guys in there, but you have directors and shit. You have people doing like setting up the whole culture, dressing you a certain type of way, tell you to say certain lines. And then in this game, she doesn't really like have that like New York swag. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
So
I
yeah.
guess because I mean she's gonna be in a whole different land anyways. You know what I mean?
You
So
can no, you can't be, but you can't just slide over that.
yeah,
I
but
mean,
go
it
ahead, go ahead.
sucks because honestly, they really should have done their due diligence, not to make it a black character, but culturally, like where New York, at least, you know what I mean? Like you mentioned Eldris Elba or whatever the fuck his name is. He had to adopt not only an English accent, but like a cowboy, that whole situation, you know what I'm saying, to make it authentic. And I guess that's what's kind of throwing people off, and just the nature of what we're dealing with nowadays. There's a lot of people that are looking for them social points. You know what I'm saying? I mean, who's doing what? That's up for you to decide. If you believe it, you believe it. If you don't, you don't. I believe it. That there's people that just they want to be on the right side of the public, facing. I'm not sure if
Like
this is the
I don't
situation,
have
but I
enough
don't know.
information about the game or her character to make any informed decisions because I didn't see any article about like if she's just like a transplant from New York that got transported into another world. Is she actually born in New York? You know what I mean? Like I don't know the whole details about her
She
character to make any informed decisions.
she's supposed to be from New York, but my whole point is not to shit on the game, but like the Japanese do it all the time. Like you got the Souls games, right? That's not Japanese culture. You know what I mean? That's still
I mean,
Western
it's more
culture.
fantasy. It's more Western fantasy though.
Yeah,
Like you
it's
can do
fantasy.
pretty much
Yeah,
But
it's
that's
whatever
what
you
I
not
want.
like
mean. But that's what I'm talking
yeah.
about. It's still they're doing some other, and I didn't want to go to the character itself. Just people were just upset about her looking the way that she looks because everyone's on edge about pandering. But
I mean Kojima, right? Kojima made a character on a white American soldier. You know,
yeah, right, yeah. But
so
you're
and
right.
Capcom, with the Resident Evil characters, they're all Americans.
Yeah,
So
I
But I
don't know
also
what.
want to say real quick that like growing up and the way I speak and the way I grew up in Connecticut and shit, like people always say, "Oh, you talk mad white or whatever." Like I don't like when people try to think like black people should be one way or, you know what I mean? Like you can be black and be whatever you want to be. You know what I mean? People can act whatever. Like look at Eminem. Like you basically are the environment you're raised in. You know what I mean? So for people to say like this isn't black enough or this doesn't represent culture, like you can't just expect all black people to act a certain way. That's basically stereotyping. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I
but
think
this
we
world
should
stereotype.
allow black people to play other roles. Like I see like a lot of like people say, oh, they're making black men soft in movies or whatever, but it's like, not every black dude is gonna be fucking, a thug or Tupac. You know what I mean? Some dude's gonna be soft. You know what I mean? Like it's okay to represent all aspects of a culture or a person that have different personalities and different things. You know what I mean? Like I don't subscribe to that notion that like this person's not this enough. You're not Asian enough. You're not. I don't understand that
It's
type of thinking.
annoying. It's annoying, especially when you have like I have a good amount of light skinned friends, and he's not black enough. That's so fucking irritating to me. And that's in West Virginia.
I'm 100% black, and people tell me, "Oh, you're like the whitest black guy I know," because I'm not fucking like acting all wild and shit. I don't understand. To me, it's an insult. You know what I mean?
It is. It is. It is a strong ass insult. That was my biggest problem and stuff like that. Corporations have a knack for trying to follow trends, and that's the annoying thing. You know what I mean? Back when you can make a sexy lady as a character, everybody wanted to do that. When it was do bro time, it was do bro time. You know what I mean? Now it's diversity and inclusion. So that's what everybody's doing to ride that wave. And I guess that's part of the problem. And you're right, Quanbo. If the game is good, it shouldn't fucking matter. You know what I'm saying? I mean, her accent and shit like that, her not being, she being from New York and not having a New York accent, whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's they needed to do their due diligence, but I don't think it's any kind of race baiting or stuff like that. Like I've seen stuff on Twitter.
I mean, do you think Miles Morales has a like a New Yorker accent?
He has this. They trained him to do like kind of like a Spanish type of accent.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So they did their due diligence.
He's more Spanish than New York. Yeah, I would say. Like,
well, I mean, he's half Hispanic from New York.
But you can hear the Spanish.
I grew up in Connecticut, and my boy's from New York, so I used to go to New York all the time. So like even Spanish people still have a New York accent. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. The Genki Gamer, he lives in Japan. He's from Japan. Well, he's Japanese, but he lives in Japan. He could tell you what's going on with of the Japanese landscape. He has the best insight. If he wants to join.
Now you heard, yeah, let me get him in here. This shit is spazzing the fuck out this space. Now you heard about, you probably know because all of us are in the same community. Akira, everybody was like pissed off at his ass for mentioning certain things and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't really like what Jemiah says, subscribe to really getting into the nitty gritty of things. I mean, but it doesn't. People shouldn't shut him down if he asks a question because he's also in Japan as well. And some people don't know. You know what I'm saying? I spoke to someone that was in the UK and he asked the question like, I'm not exactly sure what's going on in America. No, it was in Australia. And people were like, oh, you want him the right to talk. And I was like, no, I mean, we ask questions. So I think everybody should. But it's just funny. You see one developer basically doing one thing and another. You guys, y'all could just jump in and talk. I'm not stopping you guys. Just you can unmute it and if you don't want to say something, just holler. I can't really monitor the spaces when it's doing weird shit right now.
Yo, so Genki, so the topic was brought up earlier about like why like we don't see like a whole bunch of like high production, high AAA like games from Japan, other than like of course like Final Fantasy, Resident Evil, right? The Capcom, Square Enix and stuff like that. But the rest of the, a lot of the rest of the games don't really have that high production value in budget and stuff like that, which is probably why they don't. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why they don't really sell a lot is because to me, I bought East 9 this year, like day one, right? And it was a great game, but it looked like a PS2 game graphically, and that's a 2021 game. But if that game looked similar to like Tales of Arise, right? I think that game would have sold a lot more because look at Tales of Arise. That's the best that series has ever looked. And it sold, it was able to ship 1 million like a week, which is huge for that franchise.
In Japan?
Well, no, I mean worldwide, right?
Oh, I was going to say, wait a minute.
Yeah, no.
Don't forget Japan, Platinum though. Don't forget Platinum Games.
Yeah, in Japan is like the games that are gonna sell like a million plus or 2 million or whatever is either your Dragon Quest, your Pokemon, your Monster Hunter, or your Final Fantasy. That's pretty much it. But what's up, Genki? What you think, bro?
Yo, hey Chris, hey guys.
Hey, Genki.
Thanks for this space. It sounds interesting talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder why a lot of the Japanese development studios, they don't make those big budget games. I don't know. Do you guys remember that dark period of Japanese game dev, like maybe early PS3?
Yeah, PS3
era?
I was actually talking about that. Like this
that was
broadcast is being recorded on YouTube. So if you wanted to hear that, the link is in the spaces. But like I was just mentioning that it was like to me, and I'll just say this, and I'll let you completely go. In the PS2 era, right, there was a lot of innovation, and I feel like a lot of innovation came from the limitations of the console. You know what I mean? It was like they had to problem solve to make a genre. Like, for instance, Silent Hill. The PS1 couldn't render distance well. So they created fog and created a narrative behind why it was foggy. You know what I'm saying? And it was like when the freedom was given to the Japanese developers, they lost complete focus, and it extended the development time because it's like now we can just press a button and it'll work. But what do we do? You know what I'm saying? But your take on it, please.
Hey, yeah. So yeah, I think they had a big struggle moving over to HD graphics and like programming and developing for HD games compared to the West. That's why like even like a lot of the big companies that were struggling a lot, like Square Enix, they were bringing out Final Fantasy 13 and all those sequels.
Nintendo with the Wii U.
Yeah, Nintendo the Wii U, and Capcom was like making trash Resident Evil games and all that stuff. Yeah, so those were like dark times, but they turned it around like recently, end of PS4. They started to turn it around, the different Japanese companies. But I guess by that time, like a lot of the market has shifted towards the West in terms of sales numbers. Like the games that do the big numbers, like these days, they're like the Western games, like Sony first party games. They all sell like 10 billion plus. And then it's quite rare for the Japanese first party games to sell over 10 million, like worldwide, I think, for a lot of them. We had some hits like Monster Hunter that did really well.
Yeah, Monster Hunter, Pokemon, and Final Fantasy are like the only ones.
Yeah, I wouldn't count Nintendo because they're like completely separate. They just sell no matter what. So yeah,
right.
in terms of that,
they're in their own island.
No,
Yeah,
but
they're
they're still Japanese, man.
They're still Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, and their games are made by like Zelda's made by the Japan branch of Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like Zelda's not made by like a
100%
Western
Japanese.
studio. Like like what's that other what's their Western studio that they have? I forgot what they call it. They made
Retro
Metro
Studio?
Prime. Yeah, Retro Studio.
Oh,
That's
retro,
their,
yeah.
yeah, that's their Western Nintendo. But they're Mario and Pokemon and Zelda. They're all still made by the Japanese developers.
Like I was
Yeah.
talking about Sega earlier, like even though I like Judgment's story so far, but I find the fucking gameplay itself like super. The running and shit is super clunky. Everybody you touch in the street like jumps back 50 feet like you just punched them in the head. It's just like what I mean. Like Sega has never really. No, I'm enjoying the game, but like I said, like Sega has never really updated their fucking engines. Like since like Virtual Fighter, their animations have never been like updated. Like I don't understand. Like the Yakuza fighting style, it just all looks like Virtual Fighter type shit from like 10 years ago. Like I think Sega really needs to step up their game and create a whole new engine or something. I don't know what they're doing over there.
Another thing is like the Japanese market. It's very traditional. Like the hardcore gamers in Japan, they're very traditional. They like traditional gameplay styles. So like when you see like these more like innovative like with the JRPGs going to like action and stuff, it's usually like they're aiming more for the Western audience. It seems. Because like Japanese gamers, they really like the traditional turn-based style gameplay. Maybe with the Yakuza games, they like the traditional style. They like more of the same. So there's like less innovation. If they're aiming at the Japanese market, they wouldn't innovate as much with the kind of gameplay mechanics. It seems for those like traditional franchises.
Now, Flip, you were going to say something. I saw you unmute your mic.
Oh no, no. Chris was asking like, what Western studio does Nintendo have, and that's all I just wanted to say.
Yeah, you just answering it. I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. I think it's a lot of combinations. Like budget to me is probably the driving factor, but at the same time, like what Genki said, I guess the Japanese are habitual. Like they like their traditional, and they don't want to really change from it. And at one side of the blade, let the Japanese be Japanese, and let the Western be the Western. You know what I'm saying? You know, but when it comes to like just game design, like I'll look at, for instance, Guilty Gear. Guilty Gear was stagnant for a very long time until they started moving their shit along and kind of cleaning up a lot of the logic of the game. A lot of the moves need to be more readable. And they kind of knocked it out of the fucking park. That's why I believe Guilty Gear Strive it done better than any Guilty Gear. It looks better than all games, all fighting games to me, in my opinion. It's a ridiculously good looking game.
Yeah, because it started getting more popular with XR. I think that's when XR came to PS3, and it was, the age of content creation, right? YouTubers and stuff like that. Like this, they started getting bigger. So like people like Maximilian was showing it off and whatever, and more people started getting, oh, what is this Guilty Gear? The character models in the game looks really good. So of course with Strive, they try to go, bigger and stuff like that. And they also made, they made it a little bit more simplified compared to XR. XR had like crazy mechanics, and I think Strive is a little bit more stripped down. So that's why it's getting bigger,
They compromised the game to a point where they removed the stuff that, to me, in my opinion, was convoluted and wasn't the barrier. The barrier of entry was just too strong.
Yeah, it is. Like Guilty Gear is a hard game to really like try to master. Like
that's why Street Fighter has always been king, because like King of Fighters, like Grand Blue Fantasy, all these Japanese fight games are like fucking crazy complicated. Like, who the fuck has time to be learning how to do all this crazy shit? Roman cancels and shit. Like, all I just want to do is shoot a Hadouken. You know what I mean? Like, I want to shoot a couple Hadoukens. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be doing all this crazy shit all the time. You know what I mean?
The system that they have in there, right? This is what makes Japanese, like anime fighters, difficult, because they defy logic with their moves. It doesn't make any sense. When you play Street Fighter, it's very apparent what it's doing. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of systems that play like
more
the
grounded.
System. Yeah, it's more grounded.
Street Fighter is super casual, to be honest.
It cannot be casual. I could say
no, not at a high level.
Like the meta at a high level could be complicated, but like, as far as like just anybody picking up the sticks, like it's fun to just pick it up and play. You're not gonna have really fun,
but that's not the key when it comes to like popularity and sales numbers.
It's Mortal Kombat.
No, Smash Brothers.
Oh, you mean Japanese? Yeah. But Mortal Kombat. Well, because Mortal Kombat, they sold almost 20 million for a fighting game.
But Smash Brothers, they sold over 20 million. So
no, Nintendo's an anomaly though. Like Genki said,
like Nintendo shit, and it's straight up like the reasoning for it selling is because of all your characters. Like they had Solid Snake.
Can I ask you guys something?
It's simplified mechanics.
Flip, go on.
Do you guys see Nintendo as Japanese, or do you see them like worldwide?
They're
like when it comes to their games.
See, that's hard, but here's the thing: it is what it is. They're definitely through and through Japanese. They have all of the Japanese sentimentalities. They're a Japanese company, and it's just that what they struck as their type of games, it fits the Western and Eastern perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Like a mixture of both.
It's a mix. I don't know how they were able to do it. Maybe it's a little bit of nostalgia, but here's the thing in my head. Everybody likes cute. You see a cute little like puppy, you know what I'm saying? You go be like, oh, yeah. That's unanimously across the board. So all their characters are not too Disney cartoony and too flowery, but they are adorable characters. All of them are.
Yeah, they have that Disney appeal, absolutely. In the
were
video game world,
they were influenced with Disney.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
a
so
Japanese company, but like their like target is like universal. That's their like they design their things with like the universal appeal. So I think that's why it makes it so like unique from the other stuff.
and that's
it's
what
weird.
Sony. That's what
that
Sony's doing as well now, or they've been trying to do that as well.
They can't
but
do it.
Nintendo also is like Nintendo. It's like synonymous with gaming. Like, you know what I mean? Like, then like we was like it was never a point in time where Nintendo wasn't just gaming itself. You know what I mean? So it's like it's weird to separate them from being Japanese because Nintendo was like in the homes of like Western audiences from day one. So it's like the most common gaming consoles people started probably Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. Like so, Japanese gaming has always been American gaming from day one. We just never really like differentiated it, and so they had more Western developers making Westernized games. You get what I'm saying? So like from the beginning, we were already indoctrinated into Nintendo's way of what they wanted to do from the day one. Like we were never able to be like, this is the Western game, this is the Japanese game, because most games were Japanese back in the day. Like period.
When you look at a Nintendo character, the only one that looks Japanese is Link in The Legend of Zelda, and that's kind of. If you look at Mario, that doesn't look Japanese. That looks more
he's
like
supposed to be
Disney.
like Italian, you know.
That's more
Yeah,
Disney
he's
than
supposed to be a New
anything.
Yorker.
Shut up. He's smashing Frey, yo. That's what that is, yo. He said, "Fuck Peach." He found himself some chocolate. The Pichu. No, but that's what I just kind of I wanted to kind of talk about that. Because I mean, the Japanese has been obviously like one of my favorite Japanese games of all time, which isn't really Japanese. It is, but it isn't. It doesn't have like the anime. I guess they kind of do. But Shadow of the Colossus is like one of my all-time favorite Japanese games. Like just off rip. It was innovative and everything. I think Sony's issue though is that they don't have the cute characters. None of those characters are adorable or have. They're too strong. Now they do. But like the back in the day,
they've had some. It's just never really hit like Mario. Like it's just something about Mario, how that and of course the Pokemon. But Nintendo doesn't really own Pokemon.
I mean, but Crash Bandicoot used to be like the de facto,
Yeah, but he didn't
Sony
last.
mascot.
He didn't last
Because
they didn't push him after that. They didn't.
Because Sony doesn't own it. That's why I think that's why
they had a contract.
Well, they sold him off though.
No, Universal always owned them, and they didn't want to give them up either. They forced Naughty Dog to make their own game, which was Jack and Dexter. They did not want to. They were using Universal sound effects and everything when they made Crash Bandicoot. That was all their sound bites and shit. And when they saw it do big, Universal did not want to give them the fuck up. Even to this day, they still don't want to give them the fuck up.
Yeah, okay,
but like with Crash though, he was never cute though. He was always talking shit outside Sega's building.
Yeah,
like, Crash was like savage, bro. He wasn't like the Sony never
Crash's gameplay, like his gameplay and the design of Crash Bandicoot didn't. It was cool for its time, but it didn't really hit like Mario 64 hit. Like when that shit came out, that shit hit. You know what I mean? Like,
I was just saying that earlier. Like I was saying, like the whole like I spent a whole like 30 minutes talking from PlayStation 1 to 5 in the beginning of those podcasts on YouTube. And my first 3D experience was on the N64, and it was Wave Race. So when I was playing that, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what the hell? And then I played I played Mario 64, which even though they had, I don't like games that have like bottomless pits. I never fucking liked that. It was always, I'm good with that. You know what I'm saying? But what they ended up doing was like, I never experienced 3D before. You know, it took until me going to a video store and playing Tomb Raider 2, I believe, for me to like experience 3D on a different console. That was when I was just explaining that whole thing. Like I said, Mario hit, the music was fucking fire. Oh my God, man. That whole across the board, that shit, that is a killer app. That's what you would call a killer app. Oh God. So I really do appreciate them. Nintendo, they have that flair, like I said before. But you guys made some really good points in terms of it's a combination of budget because they're afraid that they're going to lose a lot of money. It's a combination of like how they create games in general that doesn't work well with. It doesn't work well with how the industry is nowadays, and they had trouble trying to make that work.
Well, I mean, I think so. It's interesting because I think that just Japanese developers, like even within the past generation, like the PS4 generation, I think that they're still making the best games. Like when I think about all of my favorite games just in the PS4 generation, or most of them, right? Yeah, you have some of the Western ones, obviously some of the ones from the Sony first party studios, right? Like God of War, Spider Man. But my favorite games was like Persona 5 and Near Automata and Metal Gear Solid 5, of course, Kojima and shit like that. Final Fantasy 7 remake, like a lot of my favorite the Souls games. Resident Evil 2, Sekiro, like those are all like Japanese made games that I feel like um a lot of them, like Sekiro and even the Souls games, they offer something cool and unique as well. That even with the Souls game, they started a whole different genre, right, and inspired a lot of genres and stuff like that. Even God of War was inspired by like the Souls and stuff like that. So they still like
Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry. That was the original God of War was inspired by Devil May Cry.
Yeah, Devil May Cry. So they're still out here like creating unique experiences and genres and stuff like that. It's just like some of the more like niche ones isn't really too selling all that well. That I don't know if it appeals to people, but Persona 5 is definitely Persona's growing more popular now. More people know about Persona. You had prior to like Persona 4 or even Persona 5, right? You ask people out here in the West, it's like, yo, you heard of Persona? Like, no. You heard of Final Fantasy? Yeah, I know Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 7 is my favorite, right? But now it's like more people know about more people. That series is starting to get more popular. Nier is starting to get more popular. Like, people didn't know about the original Nier, but they didn't play Nier Automata. And Nier Automata, which was like a niche game, it was supposed to be a niche game, right? But it was made by Platinum Games. Now that shit sold over 5 million copies. When the original one didn't even break like 1 million. You know what I mean? So
it was low key. Flip, what you going to say again?
Also, Persona 5 was nominated in the Game Awards back in 2017.
Now, here's the thing, Chris. It sounds like you are a really big fan of the Japanese games, which is no problem. Because I am actually a fan of European games. So I like the kill zones. I like the getaways and stuff like that.
Yeah. I like them stuff too. Like I like all.
I'm not saying that you don't.
Western, no. I'm saying I like both, but like majority of the time, or I wouldn't even say majority of the time, but the ones that I find the most enjoyment, like a lot of them have been from the Japanese developers and their style and their philosophies. Breath of the Wild, I think that shit innovated on open world that no other open world feels the same for me. That was like my game of the generation last gen.
Right.
How amazing that shit is.
Chris is definitely more like you. Like I fell away from the Japanese games like after like PS2 really, and I became I guess more westernized, more like European type of games. Yeah, like so like I mean the game is amazing. So but what I'm saying is like yeah, Chris is definitely more Japanese focused, but like I get most of my Japanese entertainment from anime. Like I watch a lot of anime, so like I don't really like play the games a lot anymore. Because I think like they haven't changed enough over time. You know what I mean? Like I want new experiences when I see a game like Horizon Zero Dawn. I mean Horizon Forbidden West is like, yo, I can't wait to get into this. And I played Tales of Arise, like I beat it. Like it's an amazing game, but it's not doing more than what Final Fantasy VII is doing. You know what I mean? Like I feel like a lot of Japanese RPGs are going to go towards that Final Fantasy combat just because it sells better. You know what I mean? I think last time I looked, Tales sold 1.5 by like October. So like, the American audiences do not have like the stomach for turn-based games anymore, and I prefer turn-based. You know what I mean? Like
I do too. Parasite
I
needs.
still prefer.
Well,
Say
I
again?
mean,
preach.
I would say Pokemon is like the only one, right, that a lot of people are into, and that's a turn-based JRPG. But but I would say the more unique experiences I have been getting last generation have been more have been more from the Japanese developers. You know, like near Automata, like it's like 5 different games meshed into one, but it all just flows. Like you're going from 2D
Yeah, I never played
to
Nier.
I played
But, like,
Nier back on
I feel
PS3.
like Nair's like Lady Dimitris, like niggas was losing their minds over trying to look up 2B skirt. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but
It
this
is
the
cake
gameplay,
under there. I saw cake.
The gameplay was still amazing. The set pieces were amazing. The music, everybody talks about the guy that goddamn music is amazing. Even Nier Replicant won the soundtrack of the year, right? For the Game Awards because how memorable the music is. And nigga, and the combat, the story was fire because and that was a different type of game. I never played a game like that before where you have to beat it 3 different times, and each time it's like a new character that you play as, and you get a different perspective, and then you get that final choice at the end, and it's like it's the twist at the end when you realize what the fuck is really going on. That shit was crazy, and then all the different gameplay experiences that you had, and then Persona 5, that shit. Persona 5 was to me, or as far as Persona 5 Royal, right? In my opinion, that shit was a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. I don't care what nobody says. And here's the thing, like I fell off of a lot of Japanese RPGs and Japanese gaming during the 360 and the PS3 era. Like Genki said, that was the dark time. Like Japanese gaming, it was going through a dark time because Resident Evil was shit, Final Fantasy was shit, right? The JRPGs, even the niche ones were just like average to like really not evolving and doing anything cool and unique and shit like that. But but it was last generation, and it started with Persona 5. When Persona 5 came out, it did a whole bunch of things that was different within the turn base and mechanics or whatever. At least from a game that I haven't played, and that's the 5th game, right? But it just really hit it off, and then a lot of people started getting more into that shit, and then I started playing more and more, and now I'm playing all sorts of different cool shit. I just bought Romancing Saga 3. Nobody knows what the fuck that is.
No, because you know what it is because you like the Japanese culture. That's what it is. That shit, you looking for that shit. You going out.
That's what I'm saying. Chris is like, he's really big on. I mean, I used to be like Chris back in the day, but it's like I just think like the way that they make their games is still like reminiscent of like the old days. Like,
and it's not anything. It is not anything wrong. You want to know something?
No, but that's the thing, Jemai, is like what you're feeling now. Like what you're feeling now about the Japanese gaming market currently. That's exactly what I felt like during the 360. Like I felt the exact same way, And I was like more into the Western RPGs, more into first-person shooters and all that shit, right? Mm-hmm. But then it's like I started getting tired of that shit. That shit started getting repetitive and uninspired, and we started getting a whole bunch of this bullshit, loot boxes, half-ass games. And
that ain't. Look, Chris, that ain't going nowhere. That ain't going.
Yeah, I know. They
what I mean.
Nowhere, but I feel like in terms of like storytelling and like trying new different mechanics and stuff like that, from like everything from the Souls games, from Nier Automata, when it comes to the storytelling, when it comes to Final Fantasy and how they use the original game to tell the story, like a meta story and shit like that. Like
I'm gonna hold that Nier Automata thing. Hold that real quick. Fada, what were you gonna say?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. You just breathing and shit. I'm like,
no, I'm sorry. I was sighing. My bad.
I'm like, well, you sure? You want to let it out? Okay.
No. Seriously, my bad. I was just sighing, dude. That was it.
But then you got Sony.
But I do want to ask Chris a question though.
Which is the best Western? They have the best Western studios because Spider-Man was amazing, God of War was amazing, The Last of Us 2. Amazing, Uncharted 4 and stuff like that. And I play all of those games, and those games are all amazing. I like all of those games as well, too.
I played a lot of those games. I played a lot of games over my time, basically my earlier, from, I guess I would like to say like 1990 to now. I played a lot of fucking games, so they're not doing anything that they haven't seen before. If you don't know, there was a game, I think it was called Kingsfield, that played almost exactly like fucking the Souls games. It had all of the fucking.
Yeah,
it was
no,
just
it's not the same.
I know it's not the same. I know it's not the same as a precursor to that. So it's not like they figured it's. I never seen it before. It's similar, and you want to know something too. I personally know a game. To me personally, you talking about some traversal that's better than Zelda, and that's Gravity Rush 2. Sorry. No, because everybody was like, it's a personal preference, but everybody was like, "Oh my god, Link can climb. He can climb any walls and stuff like that. He can climb anywhere." And I'm like, "Well, she could fucking walk on anything." So, like, I mean,
yeah, but with Gravity, because I beat both games. I beat 1 and 2.
Is it worth picking up?
They're really fun.
Right.
They're really good. But the controls and the combat was really clunky. It was hard to control the camera at times. And it's just like, but it was cool how you use the gravity because you can really fall, especially in Gravity Rush 2 is like you will fall and then you'll think you're gonna reach the end and you're gonna die, but then you fall through the clouds and then there's like a whole different city. You know when you keep falling.
Gravity Rush 2, yo, that shit was fire. Like the way that they layered it was, I would guess the economy. So the higher you go, the richer it becomes. Yeah, so like you can literally fall through layers of economy, like the shit. That was but that was Sony though, so it's almost as if like I can't really give it. But I would say
no, it was cool. It was cool, right? And guess what? Nobody bought it. It should flop, and they shut down Japan Studios or whatever. But it's nowhere near the level of Breath of the Wild, man. Don't disrespect the king like that. Right?
First of all, you can take your swords and shield that break in 3 hits. You all right.
Because it's a survival game.
How the fuck does the Master Sword break, dude?
It's a survival, bro. Because it's a survival game. That's exaggeration.
I don't care about the other stuff, but the Master Sword.
Listen.
It doesn't break. It just like loses its charge.
It doesn't break up. It's called Breath of the Wild. You're surviving the wild, and part of surviving is you got to use resource management, and that comes with your weapon, just like a survival horror. When you got to manage your ammo, right? You got to manage your weapon, and you got to strategize and think when you want to enter, an encounter. Should I use this? Should I use that? Or should I hold off and shit like that? Adds another layer of complexity and shit like that. So I don't know what people talk about when they talk about that. It could be overhauled. Yes, it could use a fix system or a durability upgrade system with like a weaponsmith or
throw
that
like shit that. In the trash.
Fuck that. Fuck that.
Wait. We got somebody that's raising their hand. He hasn't been talking. Genki, go on. I don't usually do the whole hand raising thing. You're gonna have to jump in like double dutch. What are you gonna say?
Yo, Genki, you there?
Oh yeah, thanks. Sorry. Thanks. I'll raise my. I won't. Oh yeah, I'll just jump in next time. But yeah, I wanted to say as Chris was saying, yes, Breath of the Wild was a landmark game for gaming, and I think in terms of this conversation, it's important to look at like what kind of landmark games have come out of Japan, like games that changed the gaming industry. One example recently would be like Resident Evil 4. That's when all the games started to have that like over-the-shoulder camera. Gears copied that, and then from Gears, we got all the modern games that we have now. Yeah, Last of Us as well. So
I'm not taking that away from them because they pioneered a lot of shit. I'm talking about what happened to them now.
Afterwards,
what I was saying.
They're
getting on their feet. They're getting on their feet because you got like Capcom was in a horrible fucking place, and then they was like, well, let me try to do Resident Evil 2 remake again, and that shit low key put them back on the map.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
Well, they've been on the map for longer than that.
No, they were suffering after they made Resident Evil 6. They were
after Resident Evil 6. Then they came back with Monster Hunter and the Resident
there was that.
Yeah, Monster Hunter World and Resident Evil 7 is what really helped them out because remember they fucked up Street Fighter 5 for its launch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the thing that helped Resident Evil 7 was PT as well. So it was like it was
VR.
Yeah, it was a cascading effect. Like I was thinking this. I was talking to shout out to Magnificent Black. He was like, "Yo, why don't they do fighting games with the RE engine?" It could do 60. Like why not? Why why UE4 all the time, yo? What's in UE4? Is it a template, a fighting game template that they just plug it in and keep it moving?
No, just because the engine's really easy to use.
But I want Street Fighter to go back to that third strike look, that
yes,
that art style, that either like the anime art style or like the 2D sprite.
Yes.
You know what they should get? They should get Arc System Works to do like the visuals, yo.
Yeah, they should. Just like
they should do that and just let them do whatever. Yeah, let them do the cartoon aspect and copy that art style because they fucking it up, yo. Arc System Works is tearing that shit all the way up.
Oh yeah, Street Fighter 6 was kind of downhill.
I don't understand why Capcom doesn't do like a Street Fighter versus Darkstalkers or something like that. Like, do you have so many IPs that you're just wasting away? Like, I don't understand.
You're asking for a dream project, Maya.
Like, D has all the. You can even put all the Darkstalker characters into Street Fighter. Like, they did some rival school characters. Like, you have a bunch of IPs just sitting there that you can utilize. Like, people will love the nostalgia.
But they gave us Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
Listen, hold on. Listen, I'm gonna tell you this right. I'm gonna tell you this right now. Dreams could happen. Dreams could happen. I ain't no spoilers, but Spider-Man. Dreams could happen. That's all I'm saying. It could happen.
Hey, listen,
we could get another Mega Man.
You are absolutely right about that there, fucking Josh, dude, man, because I got my dream fucking game when Zelda came out as Hyrule Warriors, bro. Dynasty Warriors meet Zelda? Yeah, thank you.
That was good. I played that.
That was amazing.
They were fun. It makes your hand hurt though. Just tapping the A button.
Dude, I didn't give a fuck. I love Dynasty Warriors, so having Zelda, which I love. And then
my bad. Evil Patty. I saw you wanted to speak in there. Like I said, I'm not stopping you from just jump in. Everybody's an adult, so we gotta let people talk. Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were talking about Capcom and Resident Evil 7. I think the reason why they got back on track is with 5 and 6, they were focused too much on Western developers creating an action-heavy focused campaign, and they realized that that's not what's working for them, and they pulled the reins back. They went back to the drawing board and focused more on what made Resident Evil so great. I mean, I love 7.
Facts.
I love 8. I think those are fantastic games, and I'm so excited to see what they do with 9 and the Resident Evil 4 remake. It's gonna be great.
I'm so curious. Like, I mean,
do you really need that remake though?
So, I mean, what they do?
Do we really need that remake though for RE4?
You know what, Fatal?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Before people chew me out, relax. I'm playing it regardless.
I wasn't gonna chew you out.
It's Resident Evil. I'm just saying.
Fatal, you got some PTSD or something. Like, relax.
No, that's
I was gonna say what Resident Evil 4.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right?
Stoned as fuck.
I think Resident Evil 4 was a masterpiece. But when you go back, when you go back and you play it, there are some things that you think about. It's like, they could have, it's like you play a game for the first time and it's like, oh shit, it's amazing, masterpiece. You play a game for the 10th time and you can start picking apart like some of this shit that you can see an improvement on. And there are some sections that can be better and more streamlined. Like the castle section, that shit was like way too long, and it was like some tedious shit you had to do and stuff like that. Yeah. But I mean, if they do it well and if they add new things and new dynamics and they stay, but at the same time staying true, just like what they did with Resident Evil 2, I'm for it, man. As long as they don't fuck it up like Resident Evil 3.
Yeah, I think Resident Evil 5 needs a remake.
I don't think any game actually needs a remake, but to me, like Ocarina of Time, RE4, these are some of my favorite games of all time, and I'm excited what they can do on updated system. And to the guy's previous point, there are a lot of things in RE4 that could be improved. One of the things that I hated about it, even at the time, was the QTEs, like the knife battle with that blonde dude. I don't remember.
Okay, I'll give you that. Yeah,
that was
for sure.
As hell.
For sure.
And I really hope when they do the redo, I hope they change that around. I'm not saying remove all the QTEs because there's a ton of them in the game, but just refine it, make it better,
and get rid of the island section. That shit was fucking annoying.
Yeah.
Yo, you want to know what? I was always hypercritical because of the amount of games that I would play back in the day of Resident Evil 4. I knew what they were trying to do. They were trying to go more of an action pace, faster. But the opening for Resident Evil 4 was just so masterclass, and then it just went.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
It went
very,
like
very
it was creepy as hell. It
The
was
village?
yeah, the village portion, and then
Yeah,
he made a turn and he started like suplexing
This
niggas.
nigga
Like
with a
I'm like,
chainsaw massacre, nigga.
I was like, bro, bro, he's like suplexing people. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I don't know if that's the way to go.
Hey, Leon paid off with all that military training, dude. That he
But how am I supposed to be scared of these zombies, man? You just, you know, he just didn't even. He didn't even care. He's like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, the
This
hell,
nigga
buddy.
doing stone cold stunners and shit on niggas in the game.
Yeah. But you want to know something crazy? The first thing, this is what threw me off. The first thing that really, I was like, what the fuck? One of my favorite games of all time is Tomb Raider. And one of the reasons why is because it had consequences to every action you did. You fall too high, you die. You fell to spikes, you die. You drown, all the other shit, right? Boulders. And they kind of adopted that as well, because Leon could die a whole bunch of ways. So I got into a QTE with one of the chainsaw dudes. And I'm thinking, like, if I lose, it ain't going to be that crazy. No, he cut his head clean the fuck off. Yeah. Jaw dropped. I said, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was a difficult.
I remember playing a game with my dad.
Right at the start. I mean, they threw you right in there.
But it was still like if you could think it, you could basically do it. Like when they were throwing something at you, I was like, I wonder if I could shoot it. Ping! I was like, oh, you can shoot it, huh?
Yeah. Remember those motherfuckers climbing up the ladder into the homes, and you're trying to keep the ladders off? That was scary as hell.
It was just like a lot of cool things, and it just went from creepy to like action movie hero that I'm not really supposed to be creepy, and I didn't like that shift.
It was too much.
What I'm saying?
It was too much.
The same thing with Resident Evil 7 and 8, where they're too supernatural for me.
Yeah,
that's all I'm going to say over there. You want to still be afraid of the obstacles. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember I couldn't even. I ain't gonna lie. I was wholly bitch made when I played Resident Evil 2. I was like 13. I was like, let me see. I borrowed it from my friend in middle school. I was like, let me see. I turn off the lights and shit.
Yep.
Look at the shit. It was in the street with burning cars. I don't know why it just sounded creepy. Yeah. And the guy that turned around, you remember he was eating that body.
That was
in the first.
He was like, "Sir, you okay?" He turned around slow. I was like, "Oh."
And back then, you said, "Oh my god, graphics will never get better than this."
Exactly. It's funny that you mentioned. It's funny, Josh, that you mentioned that, because that was the thing that pulled me into the first game too as well, and also gave me nightmares for a month. Yeah, the first game.
And that thing. I was like, oh. But you know what game totally topped. I'm gonna go to the next topic soon. I want to ask Chris Righteous something real quick. One of the things that topped Resident Evil was Silent Hill. Yeah. And I say Silent Hill. The reason why I say Silent Hill is they kept the same energy from beginning to end. If anything, it was even more energy. I remember playing that shit when I got my PS2, because they were like, that was the graphical showpiece. You're never going to see anything like that. And I was like, let me take a look. Let me just take a look and see what it is. It was, and I like psychological. That's the Japanese. Yeah. That's the Japanese. They like doing that shit.
Yeah. Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2. That's my favorite horror game.
Yo, I'm gonna tell you right now. Here's the thing. I walked in there, and I like how James acted the way that a person would act. He walks into the thing, and he sees Pyramid Head fucking those two mannequins.
Yeah.
That's what he was. Because let's not lie about it. That's what he was fucking doing.
Yeah,
let's not lie about it.
Yeah, he was raping them.
He was tearing the motherfuckers up. And you know what he did? He went into the closet. He saw a gun. He didn't ask no questions. He just started shooting. Not who there? Who that under that mask? He just immediately started shooting.
And he wasn't a superhero, which was nice.
He wasn't
like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was just a regular dude that, spoiler alert, he happened to do a fucked up thing. That's the reason why
he did. Yeah, I don't want to really spoil it, but holy shit, I was saying that earlier. Like, there's a YouTube link in this space. I'm recording this whole thing on YouTube. And I was talking about that. When I beat that game, I didn't play any game for like a day or two. I was in depression.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Mm-hmm. It was too heavy for me at that age to be playing that game. Like when they said mature, they fucking meant that was a mature ass motherfucking game. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't ready for what they were doing.
I have my own opinion, but when did Silent Hill fall off for you?
After Silent Hill.
After 3.
See, everybody say that. But low key, like Silent Hill, The Room, Silent Hill 4 The Room was actually damn scary.
It was good. There's a lot of aspects I didn't like about it. I was waning at 4. After 4, though, they lost me.
They lost me after 4.
Hey, Josh.
They went to Western developers, and it just wasn't the same.
Yeah, what are you saying again?
Do you remember when they tried to do the remake to Alone in the Dark during the 360 era?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge disappointment.
See, what they didn't understand when they made Silent Hill, Western developers made Silent Hill again. They didn't understand what Pyramid Head was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's number one.
Creatures for no reason.
You just threw in there.
Yeah, they were specific.
That was their own personal. That was their own personal hell. One of the lines that I liked the most out of Silent Hill 2. I don't know why that gave me fucking chills. He was like, get out of here, you're on fire. She was like, oh, what do you mean? He was like, it's fire. He was like, oh, it's always been that way for me. Right. I was like, oh, what the fuck?
Do you remember in the first Silent Hill when the red nurse, she's walking to you and
that's some see,
how crazy was that scene?
Man, that's the type of shit, man. It actually made Resident Evil like not scary from that point on. Yeah. Like when I played Silent Hill 2, none of no game or movie were scary. It was never scary anymore.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I always felt like after that, the Resident Evil games were more just like thriller. You know?
Yeah, they were like jump scares, and I was like cool, but like when I played The Room, there were a lot of things in The Room. You remember those two? Y'all played The Room, right? You remember the two fucking babies? Right, the babies or whatever, the twins that I guess it was manifested in that way. I'm sitting there in the lighthouse. I see like this 2 big head ass babies in a cloak. Yeah. And he was just pointing. He didn't do anything. And it took me, because it was so malformed, I didn't know what I was looking at. I said, what the fuck is that? I walked close. All her is whispering. And then he just started running after me. I said, oh, no. See, what we're not going to do is this shit. Now I'm not dealing with any of this bullshit. All this is bullshit. Right. You know what I'm saying? The ending was fucked up. The guy that you play, because they always do this with the Silent Hill characters. They don't do it anymore. They kind of fucked up on it. They always do this with their characters. Your character that you play is fucked up. All of the characters are fucked up. That dude that you played, first of all, he was a peeping Tom. That was his personality traits. That's why there were holes that you could peek into everywhere in that apartment.
Oh, a pervert ass nigga.
He was a pervert ass nigga. That's what he was. He had a girl next door. He had a girl next door, and he was fucking peeking at her.
Mm-hmm. Now remind me, but the protagonist from the first game, he wasn't a bad dude though, right?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think he was inherently bad. It's just that he got himself into fucked up shit. Mm-hmm. That's what ended up doing it. Even the girl Heather from Silent Hill 3, she was already embedded in that shit, and she, you know what I mean? That game was already that was a nasty fucking game, yo.
That was good.
It was
dark. They had sheets that were made out of skin.
It was dark.
All sorts of crazy shit. I remember y'all remember that mirror room? If you played the game, you know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about.
The mirror room.
You walked into the room, there was a mirror in the back room. And you start seeing, it was a mirror in the sink, and you start seeing veins go towards the fucking sink and then inside the drain within the reflection, because it wasn't happening in your world. And then it came up into your world and covered your whole room, and your reflection just froze. I was like, nope, this game's going off. The same thing with Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid was always a fucking creepy game. Always. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's across the board. That was
I think 5 is creepy.
I like number 2 was already creepy. So I was like, all right. So it was already because government. It was like it's mine too. It's mine too. It was government conspiracies all over the place. Fine. Mm-hmm. And it opened my eyes to a lot of things. But like, all right, whatever. But when it got to the end, and you kept getting those fucking out. I keep saying this. Everybody's like, yo, you a fucking dork. I don't give a fuck. I may look like I go to the gym all the time, but I'm a straight dork. This motherfucker was like, I hear it's amazing when a famous purple stuffed worm and flapjaw space with the tuning fork does a raw blank what Harry carry rock. I need scissors. 61. I turned that shit clean off. I said, nope, my PS4 is fucked up, or PS2 is fucked up. That's what I thought.
I have a confession to make. I haven't played 2 back in the day. I only played 1 and 3. I mean, yeah, 3.
2 is probably 4, the one that you can still play.
2 and 4, yeah.
2 is the one that you can still play and get some massive shit out of it. So
I
this
have
is
2 on my PS2, Josh, but
I know, but you need to get around to it tonight. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But
what's cuz name that start with an R?
Writing.
Writing.
Yeah. Come on, Ken. Sorry, man.
You don't like him? Writing. Turn the game console off. I was like, you're right. Turn that shit right off.
I just like I'm starting to play as a writing now. That's the part of where I'm at now.
It all comes together beautifully. Like it's really crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It all needs to happen.
I have it on PS2,
but
man.
It hits different though when you play it when it first launched, because coming from MGS, right, playing the Metal Gear Solid on PS1, and then with PS2, you think you can play as Solid Snake, and then you have just like the first mission when you're on the boat, right? That's like a sick ass mission because they introduce you to all the cool new mechanics and shit like that that the game has, and then right after that, after you do the tanker, all of a sudden you're switched to like this white haired motherfucker that's doing cartwheel flips whenever you change side from side to side, and, and also it's like, what the hell is this shit? And then there's fucking vampires in the game, and I was like, what the hell? That shit
thanks
was
for telling me, Chris, but it's all
oh shit, my bad.
Yo, I'm gonna tell you this with riding. I'm gonna tell you this right now. I don't know what salon he went to get his hair did. I don't know.
Motherfucker, boy.
Yo, a pimp named Slickback. He went on that elevator. I don't know if you remember this, Chris. But the first time you play him, he was in the elevator, right? And for some reason, Kojima did 3 or 4 angles of him flipping his hair up when he took off the helmet. I'm like, why?
Yeah. That's very anime. Metal Gear
it was so anime. I loved it. I was like, this nigga so extra, yo. This Kojima dude, he's too much. But anyway,
Speaking of Kojima, do you see that him and Jeff Keighley are tweeting back and forth and they keep using the word silent in it?
Yeah, hell yeah. I think he's making a new one.
It might be just a troll, but man.
No, see, this is the greatest.
You know what? It could be that. It could be a troll to get people to think it is, but it's something else.
I think it's exactly what it looks like. Because you know what else? We still haven't solved the case of Abandon.
I think Abandon is Kojima, but you can't prove it. But it looks like that.
We don't know shit. Too, huh? Yo, he ain't slick, yo. We on to his petty. Yo, he petty as hell, yo. That's
why he's kept it quiet for so long. He wants the heat to die down a bit. It was too much.
He was like, damn, I didn't train these niggas right. They catching on too fast and shit. He was mad about that.
This, Josh, the next Silent Hill game is going to be insane.
If it's anything like PT, if it's
made by Kojima, it's gonna.
That's what I'm saying.
It's gonna be.
It's got to be a Japanese developer. I want Kojima to make it. That will be
of course.
There was already that game. That game was already creepy as it is, but that Silent Hill PT. That PT shit.
It was.
I'm gonna tell you right now. I brought it over at my friend's house, man. I'm so mad, yo. He is the ultimate troll, yo. Because I brought it over my friend's house. I had my friend play through that demo like twice. Just I wanted that jump scare so bad because it scared the shit out of me. Because when I played it, they set me up. I was sitting there going around. The shit was already weird as it is. The radio played. They was like, look behind you. I said, you crazy as shit. I said, look behind you. And I was so tired of going in circles. I was like, what? Yeah, and she turned around, grabbed me my fucking throat, and then ate me. I don't know what the fuck she did. They was smacking on the camera or whatever, off camera, and I don't know what she was doing.
The screen went dark.
But she did something, And then all of a sudden, I heard something zip. Maybe she was giving them top. I don't know, but I heard a zip, and I heard like smacking. That's all I heard, and then he died. So I don't know what she did.
Man, what was more creepier was when she was looking down on you.
Yeah, her eye was fucked up, yo. I was like, on some real shit, like.
Even in the hallway, she looked fucking.
She looked fucked when she was standing in the front of the fucking doorway, and I was in the living room. She just standing, and she making those ugly fucking chimpanzee
music, nigga.
Yo, for real, she was making that chimpanzee sound. I was like, oh, what the fuck is this? And they had the 3D sound. I was like, I'll turn that shit off.
You can talk to her if you say her name, she will react and shit. Like
see,
that.
see, if he does that,
Chris?
no, you can.
Your PT, right? Yeah,
PT.
You can do that. Huh? Yeah, if you saying her name like Lisa and shit like that, like she'll react. You'll start hearing her.
You mean like if you say it verbally out of your
own mouth? If your mic is on.
Oh.
Yeah. And then like when you whisper, right? When you whisper, you say Lisa, right? And then in the background, Destiny Child song plays. He'd be like, say my name, say my name. You know when it is around. I said, oh shit. And then she grabbed me. No, she didn't do that.
No, Kojima crazy, man.
He a mad scientist. That nigga, something's wrong with him.
So I wanted to ask you this, Chris. This is what I really wanted to ask you. You mentioned about Nier and how the storyline was. You said what was really going on.
That too.
Now I'm not saying to spoil it, but can you give me a hint as to what you're referring to? Because this is going to lead right into the last topic. All right, I'm going to keep this shit short.
I mean, it's hard for me to say without really spoiling it, but let's just say. The only thing I would say, but it's gonna sound vague. I don't know. Like,
that's cool. I'll take it. It's because I got a plan for this. I got a plan. I got a plan, just like that nigga from Red Dead Redemption 2. Yo, go on.
You got okay. So I would say it's
the Dutch.
It's a repeated cycle caused by learned behavior from humans.
Got it. That's all I wanted to know. In light, and I saw you. I saw that you followed me, man. I'm gonna follow you back. I just don't want to touch the space, and it crashes on me. I can't. You know how the spaces are. I got a fucking new ass phone, yo, and it's like Twitter is crazy right now.
You got a new phone?
I've been at a phone. Like the phone was $1,300. See, I'm such a Sony fanboy. I got the Sony Xperia Mark II.
Okay.
And I was going to get the fucking new one, the fucking eye, but I was like, yo, Josh, you crazy as hell. Yo, sit down. Let that phone die first before you do that.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll be about the same thing. I'll be fucking just wasting money on bullshit I don't need.
Yo, Big Money was good, man. I see you. So, in light of the new Matrix,
they come on next week, huh?
Now, a lot of people, I was looking at reviews and previews, and I've been following this before they even announced it, right? The last topic is the nature of our reality. That's what I wanted to kind of talk about. So this Nier game, does it have anything to do with the nature of their reality?
Yes, very much so. But also because Nier, you're playing as androids, and they're trying and they're trying to learn from their human creators, and so they're trying to behave just like the humans do with the good and the bad.
Yo, you got some noise going on in the background, Kim.
Oh, my bad. I'm playing Days Gone. Sorry, bro.
I know you are. Radio Free Oregon. I already know what it is.
Do you get what I'm saying, though?
No, that's exactly why I wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
Because if anybody goes to my spaces, they know that the last topic is always going to be off topic. And I talk about a myriad of things, usually kind of conspiracy theory things. How did you feel when you first saw The Matrix?
Good question.
Chris.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I thought it was. I was blown away. I was blown away by what it was, how amazing it was. The whole, that you're really living in, or the concept that we're really living in, like a some type of alternate reality, and that and when you go into the Matrix, it's like awakening the true conscience and all that other stuff, whatever, right? So I was thinking about that, like shit like that back then, and how it relates to like our reality, and how I think there's a spirit world with like God, right, and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Then we're just here temporarily in this physical reality and stuff like that.
Did it make you question your own reality when you watched that movie? Like, did it give you some sort of like?
It did for me.
Yeah, I would say so.
Anybody want to feel free to jump in there? What about you, Evil Patty?
I remember seeing the theater. I was just blown away. I had never seen a movie like that before. The special effects, obviously, bullet time, this becomes standard, but at the time it was just groundbreaking. I imagine that's what people saw when they saw Wizard of Oz for the first time in the theater when that movie came out. I felt it was that groundbreaking. Yeah, it did make me question what is real. How do you know what is real? It was an amazing movie.
It made me question my reality. You know what? And then you add on to the fact the ending of Metal Gear Solid 2, that was on some other shit. Like it just compounded.
Yeah,
so I was thinking.
I don't want to spoil it because I know Kappa was playing.
No,
but that really made me
but I heard it's
question
crazy,
reality. Yeah,
because but you want to know something, Chris? Though the stuff that they talked about 21 years ago,
yes,
is happening now.
Yes, Kojima predicted that shit in Metal Gear Solid 2.
It is creepy as hell.
But
like
even think about Ghost in the Shell. I feel like the Japanese have always
Evangelion.
You know what I'm saying? It's crazy, man. But I'm definitely looking forward to playing. Maybe I'll play it now. Shit, I ain't doing that.
And that was my thing when I first seen that movie. It did make me question reality. There's some theories about our reality. Have you guys heard of any theories about our reality?
When I'm stoned, I'm in a dream world. So I mean, nigga, Josh is like this motherfucker.
No, I'm being like for you, Chris. Did you hear any kind of conspiracy theories about the nature of our world that you kind of like low key believe, but low key not?
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, I believe in like God and stuff like that. I believe that we were made, and there's a God of Jesus Christ as my Lord. So I believe in the other realm. Like there's another realm that we go when we die. And I believe we're here for, out of free will. Who really wants to, truly love God and or not, then you do your own thing. But if you reject God in this reality, then don't be surprised when He rejects you, in the actual reality.
I'm trying to tell niggas that a rapture coming, man.
Now, what about you, Evil Patty? What did you hear about our reality that you low key believe, low key, high key?
Nothing like that. I think that we're just a speck in a vast, infinite universe. I do like the idea of that all of you guys right now are just some kind of construct. It's almost like a VR sim that I'm in, and this whole world is just based for me. And none of this is real. I'm talking to you guys, it's not real. But at the end of the day, I just view us as a speck in a vast ocean of a universe.
So no conspiracy theories for you?
No, not really.
Interesting. What about you, Genki?
Yeah,
I didn't even know you were listening. Hold on. Oh, wait a minute. He's still here.
I was just listening to you guys.
What about you? What about your reality? Like a conspiracy theory about your reality? Low key, high key, low key.
No, I don't really have conspiracy theory based on the life, but yeah, I guess I'm a bit religious, so I just believe in maybe there's like a spiritual side that we go to, like we become spiritual or beings instead of like energy, maybe afterwards. But yeah, I'm not sure about any conspiracies.
I hear that. And this is, and then I'm gonna try to wrap this up because I know I don't want to bore you guys. I'm just always curious about learning, so that's why I ask these off-topic questions. It's not necessarily that I'm trying to evangelize at all. I just want to hear other people's thoughts.
Pastor Josh here.
So, for me, I am what be considered a quote unquote Christian, but I'm a Christian that asks a lot of questions, and there's a lot of things that isn't explained in the book. Fine, and I'm not doubting it, but it's always good to kind of question the nature of your reality. So, some of the conspiracy theories that I heard was that this world was almost like a hologram to a degree. Like this is a how can I put it? A manifestation of a higher dimension, basically. Mm-hmm. So the result from the higher dimension gave way to this particular reality that we perceive. And the reason why I say this is because quantum theory is like banging. Have you guys like looked into quantum theory at all?
The first time I heard about quantum anything was fucking Men in Black.
I thought you were going to say Marvel.
Huh?
I thought you were going to say Marvel. I was going to be like, motherfucker.
When that little girl was reading that book, or was it like the
quantum physics?
Yeah, and it was like Will Smith was like, quantum physics, like, you shouldn't be reading this shit. And I'm like, and back then I didn't know what the fuck it was, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that was the first time I heard about it.
What they say about this is the thing that if you don't know anything about quantum physics, you want to look up the double slit experiment. And it's very hard to put that into fucking words. Essentially, when they have like a system that you can shoot electrons at a board with two slits in there, you would imagine that the electrons will slip through the slits and align itself on the back of the container as two lines, right? So what you would think, if you're not looking at it, it has 20 bands of lines. If you are looking at it, it's just two. So somehow reality is altered by consciousness. And that to me is fucking bugged out. And that is scientifically proven flat out. That's what they've already calculated. Scientists are already doing things on that one. It's just the weirdest fucking thing. Chris, have you heard about that before?
My bad. I got a call. You cut out what reality exists?
Oh, I was talking about no. I was talking about the what do you call it? You ever hear about the double slit experiment?
No.
Oh, you look, Evil Patty and Chris and Genki for the matter. You got to just look that up. It's a quick.
No, I've heard of that. Have you ever heard of Schrodinger's cat?
Yep. That's not really like a proved thing. That's like a experiment. It's a thought experiment. Yeah.
I love Schrodinger's cat. I think it's a really cool thing though.
But I was mentioning too, and to me, that lets me know that, see, when you look at stuff like that, you're like, okay, how can anything create that? I mean, okay, fine, whatever. But basically, the double slit experiment is, think of a container that is divided in half by a wall that has two slits in there. And at one end of the wall, you shoot electrons towards it. Now, logistically speaking, you would think that if you shot it at this wall, the electrons can only pass through the two slits, right? And then you would see the two bands of electrons stuck on the back of the wall, right? That's what you would think. If you're looking at it, it's two, like you would imagine. If you are not looking at it, it's something of north of 20. And no one knows why that is, other than they believe that it is canceling out itself and creating an interference pattern, essentially. So have you heard about that, Chris?
Nah, that one I haven't heard. But I mean, I've heard of CERN, right? Like the
collider.
Yeah, the particle colliders and stuff like that. Then trying to break into quote unquote the other side. But this is nothing new. Nothing's new under the sun. They try to do this with the Tower of Babel as well.
Oh, so you know it.
Yeah, I'm into this stuff as well too. And
that's interesting.
There's nothing new under the sun, like what humans already tried to do before. trying to break to the other side, trying to pretty much break into heaven, right? Without doing it God's way. They always try to do this stuff and they always ended up messing some shit up or not going the way it's supposed to, the way they think it's supposed to go. So, but it is what it is. That's why I don't believe. Like I believe we are here for a purpose, because it wouldn't make sense that we're just like that everything is meaningless, that we're just a spectacle, because then that means that there's no true morality, and there's no true morality. Then that means that you think killing is just a construct of morality. You think raping is just is like, nah. You can see the effects of those. It's real negative side effects of those things. That's how you know that there's a true definite objective morality that we were designed of. In my at least that's what I believe. The way God designed us. In
How
His
old are
image.
you, by the way?
I'm in my 30s.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but
I'm
yeah,
only asking in general. There was no like method beyond that
yeah,
question or
nah. I
anything.
mean, but yeah, no, I'm into this stuff. I like I'm into this stuff too. Like I look a lot into our reality and the truth. Like the meaning of life and all of that stuff, and overwhelmingly, a lot of the evidence that a lot of people don't talk about or they'll dismiss it. A lot of it points back to God and the Lord and stuff like that. A lot of it is truly mind blowing when you look into these things. But it is what it is.
So
My bad. Go ahead.
no problem. I'm gonna ask Evil Patty something, and if you could answer it, Chris, I'm kind of curious. Evil Patty,
Yeah.
Since you don't believe in any type of do you believe something created everything, or do
I
you
do.
believe it's all random?
I grew up Catholic, but at this point in my life, I believe in a higher power. I don't think it's specifically Jesus or Muhammad or something like that. I think that is a human creation for it, a story to help us explain the world that we live in. But at the end of the day, I do, and maybe I'm guilty of this as well, but I do believe that there is a higher power that created the entire universe and everything that is in it. I think that I maintain that there is intelligent life out there, and we're just a small part of it. I think one day, not in our lifetime, but we're going to reach out and meet other species, aliens, whatever you want to call them, in other parts of the universe. But I do believe that there is a higher power.
Have you guys felt this way before, right? Because I was expecting you to be completely like atheist, and you didn't seem to come off as being angry. That's one of the things I learned about atheists. They seem super fucking angry. Like they can't just accept another person's ideology and just move on. Like not say they agree. I shouldn't say agree. Agree to disagree and just move on. They're like, they have so much vitriol for another person's thought if it's not theirs. And they just look like they're bitter and there's no real reason behind it. And I never understood it.
Right. I think I used to be an atheist and I didn't have that vitriol that you're talking about. I respected other people's opinions. Most of my family members are Catholic, believe in Jesus. I have no problem with that. Believe in what you want to believe. As long as it's not hurting anyone else, believe in whatever the hell you want to. That's my view.
See, for me being a Christian, let me ask you this before I even go into this, and I swear I'll wrap it up. Have you guys, let me ask Chris, maybe Chris knows, and I'll ask Genki. Back in 2004, it's the weirdest feeling. I almost felt like I was running out of time. I don't know what the feeling was, but I felt like I was running out of time. It just felt like I had some sort of, it wasn't like a real timer, like something I could, can quantify, but it felt like something was about to happen. And it always felt weird. Like I had to do something before. Chris, have you ever felt that way before? Or are you just kind of keep it moving?
Like something like crazy is about to happen. Like
it just feels like you're like you're running out of time. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel that way every day. I feel because we are, death is a real thing. Death is, everybody dies. At one
But
point.
it's not like
And
it's not for me. It wasn't death.
then what do you mean? Like out of time?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know I don't know how to quantify it. Like I felt like
the end of the world type of thing.
Something.
Or?
I just felt like it wasn't like the end of the world or anything like that. It just felt like I had to do something. And I didn't have that long to do it.
To achieve something.
To achieve something. And this is back when I was I was 18. And I would always feel like something. It was almost like I had like a fucking timer over my head and shit like that. I was like, what the fuck? And then eventually I got over it or whatever the case is. I just felt like it was just like little weird things. So it seems like you haven't really kind of felt that way, which is fine. But like a lot of these little things, yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, like no, I know what you mean. I've felt that way before, Like I said, and I feel like there's things that I want to do that I just don't have time for.
And it's just weird because like when you're in the Christian religion or any kind of religion, to be honest with, well, specifically Christian or believe in God, or Bible, that God. I was in the space where I used to go to church and I became an atheist because of this. Not atheist, I'm sorry, agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't able to answer my questions about free will and stuff like that. I was like, You can't have free will and then have God know what you're going to do. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the unfortunate part of a lot of modern day, especially out here in the West, and a lot of modern day churches and what you want to call them, Christians or Catholic churches or whatever, is a lot of them don't really preach the true word. In my opinion,
it's hypocrisy.
There's a lot of hypocrisy, and what that does, that damages people who grow up like that, who parents were super religious, or they grew up in the Catholic school or whatever. They didn't know how to answer the questions, and they'll just tell them to shut up and believe. Which no, you don't do that. Not even in the scriptures tells you to just shut up and believe. It always gives an explanations of things, and God always answers people, questions and stuff like that, right? Even like the hard-hitting questions, the entire book of Job is nothing but questions, right? And the hard questions and stuff like that. But that's an unfortunate, and what happens is you get a lot of people who grow up and their impressions is the human examples of what they think that their faith is, and they leave a bad impressions on that. So then they just blame it all, God and everything is all part of that. So I'm just gonna walk away from that, and that's not me, because I'm gonna find my own way, my own, quote unquote truth and stuff like that. And that's the damage that a lot of that does. But when you actually search the truth and like read into these things, and you really start to open your eyes, like, damn, the church has never really brought this up at all, or they never told me this, that, or that, and the third, or my parents never taught me this or told me anything like this. It's like damn. And then like once you start learning about, going back in history to see if these things are real, right? Like Jesus Christ, we know it was a real person because he's the most written about person. He had the most people writing about him. Most witnesses saw him died and come back. Even his enemies at that time, like even years after that, his enemies wrote about him like as if he was a real person. Just like any other person in history, right? Usually your enemies will be like, nah, that shit was retarded. That shit was fake or anything like that. But nah, they acknowledged his existence and they wanted to kill all his followers, which they did. They were going around killing Christians or whatever. That even to this day, a lot of people don't realize, if you look it up, right? And this is what makes me like stronger in my belief, because if you look it up, look up the most persecuted group in the world, right? By sheer numbers, from all different countries other than out here in the West. Guess who's the most persecuted group in the world that's getting killed for their beliefs? It's the Christians. You can look it up. The numbers are absolutely there. And I remember, like in the scriptures, it talks about during the end of times that the people who are going to get hated the most and represented the worst and stuff like that and killed the most or whatever are going to be him, or is going to be his followers. And then we look at that by sheer numbers. It's like so many Christians out of Africa the other month. No reporting on that. No reporting on that. but they talk about these report these other things and stuff like that. So there's enough evidence that I would love to have a space to really break it down, because I know a lot of people have questions, doubts, and I'm all for respecting how other people feel and stuff like that. But I'm very confident in my faith, and that there's enough evidence to really back up that the things that is being said is true and can be proven.
And let me say this too, like you said, Evil Patty, that you were a Catholic, and what I know about the Catholic religion, because I have some Catholics in my family, is that they tend to, it's almost like routine. It's
more ritualistic. Yeah,
it's very routine. It's very just let me just it's not relationship based from what I could tell. It's just very routine. Just follow it, and all I got to do is go, is A, B, C, and I'm good. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm noticing. Yeah. And that kind of takes away from, if you were to follow this, it's like it's not fulfilling. On the flip side, me being black, you have Baptists, and Baptist has a fucked up doctrine as well, where they say, oh well, it's all about like, God is a genie, essentially. All you gotta do is pray for this, and he'll give you. Oh, you want that house? You pray for it. It's very,
and they always go back to that one verse that says that, right? But they take it out of context and go to the extreme with it.
They do.
And that's what happens with a lot of people. That happens with Catholics. That happened with Christians. That happened with the Crusaders. The slave owners had their own Bible where they took actual books out that told talks about not beating your fucking slaves and stuff like that, right? And but
religion has been weaponized many times over the years.
Right, it's been extremely weaponized, and that's what a lot of people have that that tainted view on what it actually really is when you truly look into it, and you truly look into who Jesus really was and what he taught and his and his instructions of his followers and stuff like that. You look at how he talked and stuff like that, but then you look at the followers throughout histories, and they've done the opposite, but they do it in his name. And so from the people on the outside looking in, they see that and they think it's all corrupted, so.
And I would imagine it is, but if you are a supreme being, I'm sure you would have a contingency for the corruption anyway. This is as good as time as any to find out information, before it's closed off.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure you guys are aware that that door is closing for you to find out information that is accurate. See, I know this is weird at conspiracy theory level shit. And this is what I was saying about like your nature of reality. But I would watch it. I love music. I make music and stuff like that. Fine, whatever. And back in 2007 and 2008, I was looking at music videos. I was finally able to get cable, and I started noticing things. Now, no one told me about this, but my inquisitive mind followed this. I started seeing signs, hand gestures, weird things in the videos. And it wasn't like I didn't feel any kind of way about it. I just wanted to know why I was there. I was just very curious as to why I was there and what it meant. And that sent me on, and I'm sure you already know about what it is. That sent me on a crazy fucking rabbit hole. And then the question was this. All those signs and symbols, the lightning bolts, the eye and everything like that, where was that pointing to? You know what I mean? Where there's smoke, there's fire. So if that's the case, it all directed itself to the Christian religion. And if that's the case, why? You know what I mean? Like during my time, I was super agnostic. I was like, man, I don't believe in it. Like, whatever. And then now we are at a place now where, it's now conspiracy theory at this level where people are reading it. But I believe that all conspiracy theories have some truth in that bitch. Now, remember the conspiracy theory about the situation that we are all in this world with that virus, that people were saying that a lot of things weren't going to happen, and we're dealing with it now. We're dealing with a whole bunch of things, and I'm not going to get into it, but our freedom, would this happen? What I noticed about this virus is that our freedom of speech is compromised. You don't got a dislike button anymore on YouTube. There's something called false information or false, whatever the case is, depending on whose narrative is what. Because I've seen many times, right, where it was a scientist or a doctor that got something wrong, and that would be considered false information, right? But it was never removed. For instance, back in August, when they said that the vaccines were going to be perfect for everybody and you weren't going to catch it or spread it, that narrative changed for whatever reason it is, but it hasn't been removed either. So society at large, we can't say what we want to say because if you offend somebody, you get canceled. That's one of the things that's a big thing. And
that's crazy because it's really one side that's and and I'm not trying to make it like a political thing, but it's like if in this day and age it's getting to the point where if you don't side with somebody's political belief, then you're the enemy, you're ostracized and all that stuff. Like if you're pro life, oh my god, you're gonna get canceled. If you don't agree with the LGBT and stuff and that lifestyle, whatever, you're gonna get canceled, and vice versa, right? Like it's just all like I just hate the way it's going, bro. Like I can't.
It's
like,
getting worse. It's getting worse.
I just want people to realize it's like just because I may not see things the way you see it, or have the same belief as you, or not agree with your views or lifestyle or whatever, it doesn't mean that I hate you, and it doesn't mean that I don't want you to thrive as a human being and stuff like that. It's just like, nah, I have my belief and I don't agree with that, but that don't mean you gotta
100%.
Hate me, and that don't mean you gotta or call me names and label me as as your enemy or bigot or anything like that. It's like, nah, it's like I believe what I believe in, and like how many people disagree with their family members, right?
All the time, and love them to pieces all the time,
and you still love them. So
like I don't do drugs like that, but I have a cousin that he is hardcore, like hard weed. Like, well, I don't know. I think that should be laced sometimes the way he be doing it, and I don't agree with that. Now I don't also badger him either. I mean, I told him how I feel about it and why you shouldn't, and I left it like that. I kept it moving, especially me being as a Christian. You're not supposed to be trying to force people. They got to do their own thing. Anyway. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you this. Another thing that's happening. Let's say you are a Christian, right? You can't take pieces of the book out and highlight it. Oh, the Bible said love everybody. Now, I'm just speaking strictly off of what the Bible says. Because in honesty, a woman cannot be a pastor in a Christian religion. They can't. But we see it all the time. We already know what if you have that alternative lifestyle, what that means too in a Christian religion. But that's been skewed too. You can't make up your rules.
I'm confused. Are you saying that you can't disagree with things in the Bible?
Oh, no. I'm not saying that you can't disagree with things in the Bible. I'm saying that there's absolute truths. What I'm saying is that if there's something that you disagree with, you can't just write your own version of it.
No,
and just ignore what's in there.
I got you. I thought you were saying whatever's in the Bible can't be disagreed with. Okay.
No. Of course, if you can disagree with anything you want, and you see how we having a very civil conversation. We have a whole bunch of people that we have our own different views of the same situation, but no one is saying you are a horrible person. We're actually low key learning from each other.
Right. My grandma, before she passed, she was a literalist. Basically, anything that was written in the Bible, that was written by the hand of God. That's how she viewed it. I was just clarifying, making sure you didn't feel the same way. I got you.
No, not at all. It's like, and to be honest with you, one thing that a lot of Christians don't know, especially in the Baptist church, is that they sit there, right? And they glorify the people that were in the Bible, right? That made the book and stuff like that. What they don't acknowledge is that those people were horrible people. They did horrible, horrible things. Mm-hmm. Right?
It's like that in the Quran too, when they talk about Muhammad. They don't acknowledge the bad stuff that he did, or they say that the Bible can't be the word of God because it paints the prophets and the people of God in a bad light. But it's like, no, it's
there for a reason.
It's there for a reason. It's showing you that
it ain't easy.
That nobody's perfect. That even the the prophets and stuff like that struggled, had sinful desires, and they struggled as well and stuff like that. And and then it tells the story of how they were able to get redeemed from that. So it tells a very real human story and stuff like that. And real stories. I believe these stories are real. But the the human experience and stuff like that, and it's honest about the people. It's honest about the people. It's like, Moses, got drunk and stuff like that. Like Noah did, crazy things and whatever. So
they want you to know, like, let's say God is real, right? I'm sure he knows the struggle of this earth. I'm pretty sure of it, and how hard it is. So my whole belief is this: if people want to know, it's a relationship with your creator, and it's not as a tumultuous one at that. It's not an easy one, and you're going to have disagreements whether you are disagreeing with something that knows it all or not. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Like, I asked one of my friends, right? I said, hey, he knows that Bible back and forward, right? But he struggles the most. He struggles so bad with it. I said, Terry, did God create evil? He said, no. I said, does God lie? He says, no. I said, did he not say he created everything? Well, the problem is, he created humans, which then we created. I said, dog, you can't there's no caveats, man. It doesn't work that way. There's no caveats.
Right.
Either you do or you don't. And he said he did. And what I was thinking too, the byproduct of free will is knowing the evil and good. There's no way for you to know what hot is without cold or light. You need the two to be able to discern the difference between it. And I think whatever he's
right, that's exactly what you said. This is the byproduct of free will, because it's,
you have to have something to choose. If you don't have anything to choose, you can't. There's no free will.
There's no free will, and it's not true love. Like you can't truly love. God, if he forces you to love him, it's like a guy trying to force a girl, to love him or something like that. And it's like, do you want that? You want to force love, or do you want the love that she chooses to love you out of her own free will? But the byproduct of that of having the choice and the freedom and stuff like that is all the bad stuff that comes with it.
You have to, unfortunately. And I think, like, the story is not a literal story when they talk about the fruit. I don't think it's literal in terms of a literal fruit. I don't know what it could be, but I do know of that knowledge, whatever that thing was, a tree of knowledge, could have been interpreted in a lot of different ways. But the byproduct, the end result is that you know it all at this point in time. And if you know both sides of the things, now you have free will. And that is a price. That's a heavy fucking toll to know things. The more you know things, the harder your life becomes. I don't know. You 30 years old, you 30 something years old. And anybody that's going through life, know that the more information you acquire, the harder life is.
And sometimes the more information that you know, to realize that the less you know about the world as a whole. Right.
It opens up other doors and makes things even more complicated.
100%.
Ignorance is bliss. If you don't know anything, the world is a great, happy place. There's nothing wrong with it. But the more you understand, you realize that there's problems in the world, honestly.
For instance, you're Catholic and everybody knows what Catholic priests do. Right.
Well, actually, I wouldn't identify as a Catholic.
No, you're right. You're right. I won't say that. You know of the Catholic.
That's one of the reasons religion. Why it encouraged me to
go another way. Now here's the thing, right? That entity, religion, is protected by government. They all know what happens. Yep. Why?
Yeah.
Why is it protected? We know it's fucked up, but it's protected. And that opens up another door. What is going on behind the scenes? It's just more and more layers.
it's too big of an entity to crumble with something like that. I mean, a crude example, but remember how the banking crisis that we had years ago? They were too big to fail, and so we bailed them out. The Catholic Church, whatever entity you want to talk about, it's too big. And I think some could view it as there's a few rotten apples in there. Well, I think there's a lot more than a few rotten apples. I think there's a lot of rotting apples in the Catholic Church. But I think it's too big. It's too big to try to take down.
But you know what's weird? The world is going away from religion, right?
Yep.
But then this entity is protected for some reason. Yes. Wouldn't it be easier to break free from it and just let them do their own thing and whatever? There's extra layers to this shit. The same thing about this is my last piece here. And look, Chris, if you want to facilitate a space specifically for this, I would love to be in it. I would love to get all my info and everything like that and just stack that shit up because it's an interesting topic. Have you've seen the curation of data in this world? Mm-hmm. Certain entities can't say things on the internet or you get shut the fuck down. I'm not talking about, it doesn't matter what it is. You get shut down. There's no dislike button anywhere. You know what I'm saying? These Facebooks and Twitter and YouTube, all of them lean a certain way. So if you go the opposite way, you get your shit shadow banned. I had my fucking YouTube channel shadow banned. Just mentioning this shit is shadow banned. And I was like, why this shit ain't growing? And you look at the stats, just as many of my subscribers that go up is the same exact that goes down. So YouTube is actively unsubscribing people. Shit like that draws so many fucking questions. The fact that if I say something and if it doesn't align with, like alternative lifestyles, like if I say that I don't really believe in alternative lifestyles, I don't care what you do. That's your thing, but I'm not going to go for it. Like, you know what I'm saying? If biologically I go by that particular sex, like you can't make yourself into a different sex, instant ban. Instant ban. Why? Why is this? It just makes you wonder. I don't know what it is. I can't point heads or tails, but I don't know why it's like that. And it's weird to me. The more we get social media, it's the same thing. Now he's gone. That his name is Ken. The guy's name is Kappa. The same thing that they were saying in Metal Gear Solid 2. There's too many people with opinions, and it's polluting information. There's too many people talking.
Right.
And if we can't get everybody to be,
Well, first off, I know you're ending this soon. I just want to say thanks for letting me join you guys. This is a really cool discussion we're having. But going back to your point.
No problem. I'm following you, by the way, too.
Thanks. I think we've always had this many opinions. We've just never had the ability to voice it like we do today. And I think to your YouTube problem that you're bringing up, I think that there's too few of these companies. I think competition is good, but when you think about a video platform, it's primarily YouTube. I think it would be healthier if there was competitors to YouTube, competitors to Twitter. I think competition is good. And it encourages different thoughts, different feelings. And to your point on why people are shutting you down for those things, I think everyone today is afraid of being exclusive. And so they're being overly inclusive. So if you say anything negative about a group, they're quick to shut you down. That's why they're doing it. You can't include everybody. You just can't.
Yeah.
There's no way to please everybody. There's no way. And we should have never went down this path. Ever.
And it's crazy because the people who are trying to include people the most are also the ones who are being the most aggressive and excluding other people who view things differently from them.
But
it's weird, isn't it?
I would argue that you can include everyone. Just allow everyone's voice, even if you disagree with it, to be heard. If I think
motherfuckers need to be in the dough, and if you don't agree with something, agree to disagree and move the fuck on. That's what they need to do.
That's what I'm saying. But YouTube
and we used to be like that. Like I said, I'm 37 years old. I'm going to be 37, but I'm not going to split hairs. But I'm 37 years old. When I went to school in high school, right, there were racist people. I agreed to disagree and moved the fuck on. You want to know something interesting about the racist people that were in school? There was a time where the school didn't know of it, and we had to be paired together. Me and the racist motherfucker. You want to know what happened in that situation? We had to work together, and guess what happened? That motherfucker ain't racist anymore.
That's good.
Because it was like he was told one thing and he believed it, and then I was a different thing from what he saw, and it didn't make any sense to him.
Right.
When you don't allow people to allow themselves to express themselves and mangle, and you just start separating off, oh, we gotta be this and this, it creates more discord.
Right. And that's exposure. Exposure is good. Exposure to different ideas, even if you completely disagree with them, are healthy because you can change your opinion on something, sometimes for the better, hopefully for the better. But I think exposure to other ideas are fantastic, other cultures, other whatever.
That's not where we're going, though. We're going to more and more segregation. Like, for instance,
I understand that. I agree. We are. But I'm saying that the answer is that YouTube should not be shutting down people that happen to disagree with the overall culture on, you can switch your sex, your gender. If somebody wants to say, no, you can't do that, I don't agree with that, YouTube should allow that comment.
But it's not enough, though. Like, for those people, it's not enough for them to have their own decision. If somebody wants to remove their genitalia, fine, that's your truth, right? But it's not enough that they removed it. They have to make sure that everybody lives in their world. When I go to work, I don't want people to talk about, well, here at such and such job, Black people are struggling the most, and da-da-da-da. I don't want to hear that. I don't. There is struggles and shit like that, but like it's like when you keep if you keep pointing out negative shit, what's the positive shit? You know what I'm saying? What's like I need the full picture. Put it that way, not like a half picture that only shows negative shit. I had a conversation. I won't say who. But it was a conversation with a person that was so racist as a Black person, super racist. And he hated almost all white people. I said, what about the 13-year-old? He had something to do. He was related to somebody that whipped my great-great-grandma. That you can't blame him for that. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah. So, blaming and they're making... this is like the white people. I'm not white or anything like that. I'm not defending white people, but there's this whole thing where, like, just for you being white, you have to be, you have to be ashamed, and you have to, you know what I mean? Like, understand that you had, are way more privileged, and you have to use that voice and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't think it really works out like that. Like, I know white people that really struggled, because of bad decisions, and a lot of issues that people have through their life. And there are some that you can blame on some things that are built in the system, right? In a societal system or a systemic, right? But for the most part, a lot of people's issues is because of poor decision makers in their lives. And having to, take responsibilities of some of the decisions and paths and things that they're doing with their lives and stuff like that. But then they don't want to blame themselves. A lot of people don't like to view themselves as
the problem,
the problem, right? And so they look for other things to blame. And I'm poor, I'm Puerto Rican, right? So I'm Hispanic. Oh, I'm poor and Hispanic, right? But the reason why I'm poor is because of the system of the government and shit like that. It's like, the reason why I'm poor is because I'm lazy and my ass plays video game all day and I don't want to get up and fucking do anything. You know what I mean?
So there's a Mexican. He's literally Mexican. And his name is Caesar. He does the Dog Whisperer show. I don't know if you can look him up on YouTube. This motherfucker was living on a street and became one of the most popular fucking people.
Yeah,
how do
like
you explain? How do you explain that then? Like I'm black, and I have to deal with, oh well, they keep us down. The system keeps us down. I'm not fucking. I'm pretty successful where I'm at. The fuck you mean? Well, you know, because I'm living in the ghetto and I can't get out. How?
When other people, I mean, it's a mentality thing. At the end of the day, I think so. But
it is. It really is. And the last thing I want to mention is the female male dynamic. I'm single, and I'm single by choice because of what's happening in the world. Obviously I don't have any problem with women. You know what I mean? That's what I prefer. I'm sexually attracted to women, right? But one of the things that's happening with women nowadays is they got like crazy amount of like pull when it comes to certain things. For instance, if you get married, right, and she divorced you, that's the end of your ass and your shit. That's it.
It can be the flip side of that, though. If the woman in
it is astronomically rare for that to be the flip side of things. She has to be so degenerate to society before they even consider it. If it was two equal people, like two parents, and they split, and the dad wants the kid and the mom wants the kid, right? They will automatically give it to the mom because they think society says that men don't know how to take care of children.
You're right.
Well, then that's when you need to get a new lawyer or a better lawyer and negotiate that the dad gets the kids for the summer, the mom for the winter, and you know.
It's crazy though, but you gotta. But I'm not talking about the hoops you have to go through.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, and it's crazy because a lot of women, right? They started this whole movement that they're pushing for. That already ended a long time ago, right? At least
a long time ago.
At least over here in America, right? You know, this whole equal rights and stuff like that, right? But at the same time, it's like, women get more privilege a lot of times than us men do, and a lot of
you
times
can't even say that. You can't even say that.
A lot of times it's not fair. Like if I'm streaming, like I don't know how many people you have on your YouTube Gamescast, but right, you're streaming male, whatever, right? You probably don't got a lot of people in there, but if you were a woman and you had your boobs all out and stuff like that, hundreds of thousands of people.
There's going to be women that's going to look at that woman. There's going to be women that's going to look at another chick and envy her, and women have that propensity to do that, where they just be like, "I hate that bitch."
I'm sorry to interrupt,
and
guys.
Still watch her.
I got to log. I got to get off.
Yeah,
but it was really nice talking to all of you.
Yo, don't forget to follow, man. We do that. Well, I do this every Saturday, man. That'd be nice if you follow. Right, take care. So that's the one thing that I seen, and I'll wrap this up, where the girl will look at a situation, they will look at another girl and be like, I hate that bitch, and still watch her. Also, there's another situation where men want to see the woman too. And then on top of it, sometimes you'll get a girl that's not fit and get really pissed off and be like, you know what? I hate that men only like fit women. I can't stand that shit. And on the flip side, that same chick would be like, I want a 6'4" dude.
Yeah, there's a lot of double standards and with everything, man. There's a lot of double standards, man.
That is it. But the thing is, it can be nice to have double standards, but because of women, the way that women work, women buys things more than men. Statistically proven, period, right? Problem there is that all corporations are trying to cater to that so they can buy more shit. Mm-hmm. So we get washed out in terms of pure logic. We were like, well, I don't think that's a way. Well, you can't say that. I can't say the truth. That's not the truth. She's living in her truth. And it's like, you get a lot of that shit that's going on, and it's frustrating as a man to deal with that shit. It's frustrating just to see everything that's going on. It's frustrating about these fucking, you're an anti-vax because you don't want to take this or whatever the case is. No, I'm not. Can I wait? You know what I'm saying? We're hearing blood clots. What happened? What if I had issues with blood clots? I have a friend that has issues with blood clots. He can't take that shit. For what? You know what I'm saying? But again, it's just layers and layers of our reality that's ass. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's just ass. It's double standards out. It's double standards out the wazoo, and we are having less and less choice. But I'm really glad though. Yeah, what you say?
No, I say yeah. I agree.
I'm really glad that you showed up there. So as soon as I get out of here, I follow Genki too. As soon as I get out of here, I'm gonna follow everything. I know if I leave out this spaces or whatever the case is, it's gonna crash. Or if I try to open something else up, I don't know. I had to reset my phone. But yeah, if you wanna what do you call it? Ever like I'll hit you up with it in the future or whatever the case is. If you want to do a space specifically for like religion and shit, and we'll get our stuff together, we can do that shit.
Yeah, man. You know,
I
usually
don't want to impose or anything like that. I'm just
nah. I will always wonder, and I'm glad you had the space. I'm glad I joined because I saw my guy Sick Humor. He shared it, right, and then it talked about what happened to Japanese devs. So I was curious to see what y'all were talking about. That's what drew me in, right? Because I'm a big fan of Japanese games, right? But yeah, then all the other stuff when you start throwing all those other questions or whatever, it's like I knew I'm here in the world, right? Like I have a true purpose, right? And sooner or later is um my belief is going to be in question, and it's going to be either people are going to be for it or against it and stuff like that, right? And I knew one day, like, even though I built this platform, or not built because this is not a platform I built, but I'm just saying my profile right on Twitter is mainly focused on games, right? Gaming and all sorts of things. That's mainly what I got on here for, because I don't know too many hardcore gamers in my real life, aside from like one or two people. So I always felt like, oh, this is an opportunity to meet other people who share the same passion as I do, and I have had a lot of meet a lot of cool people on here like you today, and Genki and stuff like that. But yeah, I knew especially in the way the world is and stuff like that. It's like I know how people view my faith and and the things that I believe in, and because at one point I viewed it the same way. Like all of the discrepancies that people have against Christ and God and stuff like that, I was 100% viewing things the exact same way. I had the same questions and whatnot. When I sought out the truth and I was looking in, really digging deep into the truth and all the other stuff or whatever, it kept leading back to the consistencies that what the scriptures have been saying the entire time that humans been here on this earth, or God has been saying the entire time that humans been here on the earth. It kept leading back to the consistencies of that, and that's when I was like, yeah, it's overwhelming at this point. But a lot of people don't know a lot of things. A lot of people, or they'll see things and they view it completely differently,
or they choose not to see it too. Like that's another thing too.
Yeah, exactly.
When we start talking about this, instantly their first response is, "I got to get out of here." For whatever reason, it's instantly like, "I don't want to talk about this because I don't even want to open my mind to another possibility of something else." You know what I mean? They're in the comfort zone right now where they're like, "I'd rather just be in bliss." Or you just assume that we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. Because listen, I can get down and dirty. I learned a lot of science shit. So when I do speak to an atheist, I'll have shit to back things up.
Yeah, with science. Because a lot of people think that like faith, like God and science are enemies, but no, that's not the case at all. That's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, science backs up God.
Every time you can find something, unless it's like something that we don't have a tool to measure, it's going to back up. It's going to back up like religion.
The only thing that impose a threat to it, right? Or the theories that, like you said, that you can't measure. Like nobody was here in the beginning of time, so nobody can really prove that there was a big bang, and before we had a stomach to put food in inside of us, we had feet, and when we had our stomach, we didn't have a mouth to feed, and how were we supposed to? So that's why I was like that, but it worked, man. It worked. It worked on me. It worked on a lot of people, even to this day. Like this whole godless world of where like things just magically appeared out of thin air, and things just started evolving, even though there's literally no link of proof, right? No actual definitive link.
I told an atheist this. I said you need just as much faith to believe what you believe than I do.
Right, but it's because it's like
because I'm gonna tell you right now. You said
like
that. I was going to say this because he told me my problem is I don't know what started everything, right? What created God? I said, cool. What created the Big Bang? Where did that come from? And in science, you can't create energy from nothing.
Yeah,
so
nothing.
It had to come from something.
Yeah, it's scientifically impossible. So something had so it only logically makes sense, even if you don't want to believe in God, right? It makes the most logical sense that something had to be there forever.
I was even if you look at it, I was like, you don't think. Excuse me. I said, you don't. A creator is not going to build himself around his own limitations that he's making for his creations. He's not building the universe around him. He's outside the fucking universe. He's outside of it.
Yeah.
So time is a concept that doesn't exist. When he said not where he resides.
Oh yeah. No, yeah.
When he said I always was, he means that.
Yeah, and you know what? Okay, what does science say that is what the universe is made of, or how we're all created, right? Is time, space, and matter, right? You heard of these three things, right? Time, space, and matter, right? Those are like the three laws or whatever. I don't know, right?
The time space continuum. Okay, so I was mentioning that I had another space like this. Like I said, it's on the YouTube thing that was recorded. It was really good. You can't. I was like, why do you keep calling it the time space continuum? Why do you keep throwing space in this bitch? You know what I mean? That's what I was saying. And here's the thing. In order for me, let's say I knew where you lived at, right? In order for me to get to where you're at, it's going to take time for me to do it, right? Mm-hmm. You need time to express the space in between us. You know what I mean? So even if it's as small as the vibrations of quarks and electrons, you know what I'm saying? It still takes time for it to oscillate. Yeah.
But what I was saying is like you hear that all the time, like time, space, and matter, right? That's part of the universe or whatever. When in the scriptures, right, the very first verse, right, which is in Genesis, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Right. So if science, many thousands of years later, came to the conclusion that our universe operates on time, space, and matter, right? Thousands of years later, but in the book of Genesis, which was written thousands of years ago, right? It says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Right. So right there, you got the three examples right there. In the beginning, time, God created the heavens, space, and the earth, matter. Right. That's the three right there. And then thousands of years later, that's what scientists say. Oh, we operate on the time, space, and matter. Well, Genesis already told you that.
They didn't like the way it sounded. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But that's
it doesn't get credit. It doesn't get credit until human finds. And there's just so many things. It's like, yeah, we can have a space on that because when it talks about how the blood works, it was talked about it hundreds of years before scientists knew, or thousands of years before scientists knew, that life was in the blood, or how to do these medical things, right? When it talks about just like it's just a whole bunch of things that we can get into. Now, the Bible's not a scientific book at all, but it does mention things and instructions on certain things that back then nobody knew exactly what it was, and humans were doing the opposite, and we're getting all sorts of negative results. But then later on, it's like, oh, well, you know what? This actually does work, but it was already written. Like God already gave knowledge to the people, and the people wrote it down. You know what I mean? So
people didn't understand this too. Like they sat there and like this, the Bible is not a scientific. It's not a science book. It's a life book, meaning that it's teaching you how to live and to be safe, spread the gospel. You know what I mean? It's not here to tell you the origin story. That's not what its purpose is. You know what I mean? And people get that. It has it in there as a passing. You know what I'm saying? Because
as a passing, not going into details.
It's a part of the narrative of what is saying. It's a part of the narrative, but it's not a thing where it's not a thing that's. It's not trying to explain it all. Here's another thing too. I mentioned these two things: a Venus flytrap, right? The reason why a Venus flytrap works the way that it works is that the soil lacked the nutrients for whatever plant it was before it was a Venus flytrap, right? So how did it form a trap? Where did you get the knowledge to make the trap, even though you can't see anything, and then create enzymes that smells a certain way to attract a certain animal? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would it, instead of it just dying, it refused to die, and it created a trap out of nothing? Then whatever knowledge it needed, that plant, to create this intricate trap, it came from nothing. It has no eyes, no brain.
Right, and then they call the DNA the book of life, right? There's no book that has written itself. Like somebody had to write something, or even like in computers, somebody had to write and code. There's nothing that creates. You
can't get something from nothing,
right? And everything, and everything that's created is already complete. Like we like us as humans, we have all the necessary things we need, to survive and to function. Right, 2 eyes functions perfectly for us, right? A nose, right? A mouth, and stuff like that. The way the sun, we have a day and night system that never fails, right? Every 24 hours. It's a system that when you look at it, it's like perfectly designed. And
they say a lot though. They say a lot. They say that there's so many organs that don't work or they're not supposed to work. And how do you know? Because you know what? We don't need both of our fucking kidneys or both lungs. You know what I'm saying? So do we really need two? Do we really need it? How do you know that organ isn't necessary? You know what I'm saying? How do you know? Oh, we're evolving away from it. And how do you know that when the creator created everything, right? How do you know it wasn't created to adapt to its ever-changing environment? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I do believe in like micro evolution, right? Which is pretty much adaptation. Which like
we wouldn't survive if we were hard fixed as this creation. We wouldn't.
So there will be things of certain creatures that will kind of change over time, because they have to adapt in that way in order for them to sustain life in whatever environment that they're living in, right? So you have
it's ever changing.
Yeah, but you don't have an instance to where one creature completely transforms into a totally different creature or whatever, right? I mean, the closest thing you have is what, like a butterfly, right? Like a metamorphosis, but even
that's even that is like they don't know how to explain that either. One thing that blew my mind, Chris, is that no one has a full fucking fossil. They take bones from all sorts of places and try to put it together or add things. But when you see a fossil that's in the bedrock, it is never complete. Never.
Yeah.
So that means you had to come up with something.
Well, they haven't even found like a fossil or skeleton that links one species to another.
No, all you can do is make guesstimates. As I adequately put earlier, you need as much faith as you would a religious person to believe the shit that you spewing out. You know what I'm saying? And another thing that's a point of contention for a lot of people is the Noah's Ark thing. Okay, so everything flooded, right? How did they get all those people or animals on that boat? Do you have an idea, Chris? That's a hard one.
Well, no, I mean it was 2 of each kind, right? It wasn't every animal. It was two of each kind with like the land animals and stuff like that. and God gave Noah the dimensions to make the boat, or and I think it was an angel that came down and gave him the dimension to make a boat. And yeah, I mean, I don't think it was as much animal as people think it is. Like people think it's like a whole animal kingdom fit in a boat. I don't think it was like that, anything like that. But it was enough to replenish and reproduce. At least the a lot of the land animals. Go ahead.
You know what I think though? What it is I think that because a lot of science has to take liberties of either lying or trying to make it easy to understand.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you've seen Jimmy Neutron, right? You've seen the look of the atom. We have the nucleus, the cluster of balls, and the fucking orbit of the electron. That is not what it looks like, and not how it functions either. But for people, the layman, to understand it, they had to express it in that way so you can kind of understand somewhat of what it is. Because if they try to explain to you, it is a ball of energy that vibrates, right? And then there's another cloud of energy that's around it in various shapes. Sometimes it's the shape of a sphere. Sometimes it looks like a dumbbell, but it's just a cloud of something. And that cloud is an electron. And that electron, it can only be presented in that cloud. And that same one singular electron is in all of those different places at once at the same time, creating that cloud. So if you try to pinpoint where the electron is, then the cloud disappears. You can find its location, but you can't find where it's going. That's a hard fucking concept to understand, right? So you got that. What if there was some extra scientific stuff that was going on in a supposed boat? You know what I'm saying? That held life of, you can manipulate life in that particular way. And it was a partial story. Let's put it that way. We don't know. The only thing that they're saying is that it was flooded to kill everything on Earth that needed to be killed because of the pollution of what the demonic entities were doing, fallen angels.
Right, and they were doing a lot of crazy.
They were doing gene manipulation back then.
Yeah,
because they were having.
This is where you get this is where you get all of those mythological stories of like centaurs and like the half human, half horses and the snakes, and shit like that, because like what you said, they were manipulating, but they were also trying to put human parts or animal parts into humans and stuff like that as well. Like that's what I said, like none of this shit that we're seeing today, like society was advanced at one point.
It was way, I had a space
before the flood.
I had a space literally talking about the different civilizations that collapsed over and over again. You know what I'm saying? They're finding soil, right? In layers of soil, and each layer has their own type of pottery and architecture. So it's almost, and you already got the Sphinx in Egypt that has watermarks all over the place. Something fucking happened. We don't know.
Yeah. No, and all like mountain, like they found like shit like in the mountains, right? On like in the inland mountains, even in like in America, that signifies that there was a lot of water and flooding. Like there's scientific proof of a flooding. Not only that, like there's like more than like 50 different like cultures and religions that also mention a flood as well, like a long time ago as well that happened.
It's crazy, yo. We gotta facilitate that space and just kind of lay it out. It's just funny. Every time I come up with these conspiracy theory type spaces or talk about religion, people cannot handle that shit at all. They do not want to critically think. And they can't.
Yeah, some people get sensitive about it or whatever. But that's like the power, especially when you start talking about Christ and the Bible and stuff like that. Like there's a there's a power behind that people react differently, and a lot of people because we're born in a rebellious nature towards God, right? We're already in that rebellious nature and like our sinful, like we want to do things our way. And God tells us that these things is not good, so then we just try to block out God altogether.
It's conviction as well. Yeah. It's conviction because when people know that there is a right and wrong, you got to fess up to what you are doing.
That personal conviction makes them feel uncomfortable.
And they're like, I don't want no part of this, because they want to continue to do what they want to do, and that's why it's uncomfortable. But the shit needs to be said, honestly. People don't know this. But I'm always critically thinking, like I told you about my friend, this dude struggles with women, getting women. And he gets so upset with God that he can't get one. And I'm like, you don't even fucking try. You just stay in your room. What do you think he's going to do? Manifest a woman in your room?
Right.
How are you going to get her?
Yeah.
You don't
and that's
dress
the thing. Like,
yeah.
yeah. And God likes to do things what's best for us. Like him just
He
making
ain't ready.
a woman
He ain't ready.
magically appear is probably not going to do anything for your friend. Your friend is probably going to have to go through a lot of growing and stuff like that before he gets into that mentality where he can find the right one.
He's not ready. And I was telling him that. I said, I guarantee you, as much as you in the Bible, you'll be the main motherfucker to leave God when you get what you want, or fall short, and start actually probably worshiping her over your creator. I don't think that you're stable enough to do it. I've been telling him that shit. I just don't think he's stable enough. And he doesn't get it. You getting mad at God for what? If it's that easy for you to just like diss God, leave God, and you read all the Bible back to front and front to back, and it's that easy for you to just say, I'm tired of God, I'm sick of him, then you're not ready. Don't get mad at him. You can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's crazy, and people don't know I'm super. I believe in God and what the Christian religion says, but I do ask questions, and one of the reasons why I ask the questions is because what I do, I need my strength, my faith strengthened, and when I do, and you hear me cussing and stuff like that, one of the things that I'm unapologetically for is I am flawed. I can't help that. Everybody has their own little flaws. Maybe somebody doesn't curse, but they have a addiction to pornography or whatever the case is. Everybody has their own little bane. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's truly good.
Nobody's truly good. And there's all a relationship with God. I wasn't really able to say it because I didn't want to make people like get up and leave, but now I can kind of say it mano a mano that it's a relationship with God.
Yeah,
and he totally understands your faults and things. And I'm like, and I told this to that friend of mine. If you think that God is going to immediately ostracize you or punish you for the mistakes that you made, you don't know who he is then.
Yeah.
You have no clue who he is. All that reading, you still don't know who he is.
Yeah. It's like a relationship between a father and a son. You know what I mean? Like if you have a child, you know, even if your child is being bad, like you could truly like never like let them go or be truly like, you know, like upset with them or not be there when they need it, you know, and stuff like that. So, but sometimes as a father, you gotta know when you gotta let especially when your son grows up, you gotta and knows everything from right and wrong. Sometimes
I wish you were in that space, man. I really do, because that atheist told me, it was a space that I did about a week or two ago. That atheist told me this. He says, if God is all knowing, why are you talking about free will? And I gave him such an elegant answer. I would say so myself. If I knew all of the roadways of the United States, right? That means I know all of the roadways of the United States. Meaning that I know every road that you could possibly take. That's how I figure God is when it comes to knowing his people.
Exactly.
It's up to you to choose whatever road you know, but he does know everything.
Yeah, but he knows what. Yeah, he knows.
He has an ending. He has an ending. He has a recourse for every road that you take. But it's up to you. So it's like, even if you do this, he's going to have a recourse for it. Right. He's like, he was so shocked by that definition of free will and the whole thing about how God knows everything, but you still have free will. And he was telling me, well, why do people pray? They be praying, please help me with this. I said, to me, prayer is not telling him to help you. I mean, telling him to help you when you know it. It's about forgiveness and to strengthen your relationship with him. Asking for forgiveness and stuff like that, and prayer and in worship. People think that, oh God, keep me safe on this road and stuff like that. And some people do fall into that trap where they like, if you're God's child, then you're going to be protected. Period. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and also, but like a prayer, I mean, if you're only gonna pray when you need something, then you know what I mean. It's like God sees that, and that's why He isn't giving you anything, because it's like, yeah, as soon as I give you this, you're just gonna go right back and get away from me, like like what you've been doing, right?
Yeah.
But now you need prayer for everything. It's like, just
I got
to
my
talk to
own.
God,
I
just
got my own
be
struggles,
thankful.
and
Yeah,
I just
your own
just to
struggles.
talk to God is to talk to God. And sometimes my prayers, I know you know what I'm talking about when I say this, especially now that I'm kind of talking to you and I kind of get the flavor of the conversation or the vibe. Sometimes you don't even need words, but you're actually talking.
Yeah, no, the Bible does says that. It's like
you're not really saying words, but you're communicating almost like Wi-Fi, almost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. You know what I mean? I'm a tech geek, so that's how I'm going to relate it to. But like, you're going back and forth, and you're not really talking with the English language. It's like you feel your question or whatever you're saying, and you feel the response of it, and it's a language in itself. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you kind of want to say it, and you're like, well, thank you. You were appreciative of everything that happened. You know what I'm saying? And you say, help me, because I'm asking, because we have free will. Help me. I'm allowing you to help me by asking you this to overcome whatever I'm trying to overcome. You know what I'm saying? Not making it like, oh, it'll keep you safe, because that's a given. So there's some things that is a given. He already knows what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And the guy was so baffled at that answer. And he was like, well, why? He was like, why do you have to make all these mental gymnastics? I said, you were going to ask me why you were making all these mental gymnastics to prove that I'm right. I said, I never said I was right. This is still in process. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And I didn't say that this theory was perfect. I don't know. It's a work in progress. You know what I'm saying? It's a relationship is what I was telling them. I was like, I never said that this is a be all end all, how I'm behaving in this particular case. And he was shocked at that answer, because you talk to a regular person, a religious person, they act like they got everything down packed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and sometimes they don't know the right answers, and like he asked you that, right? And like you say, he was shocked, is because he's probably asked other people before, and those other people either they don't know how to answer it, or they never looked into it themselves, or they're one of those, I just believe and no one asks questions, right? Which is to me is ridiculous. It's like asking questions it's a natural part of growing your faith. Like God wants you to ask, the questions, even the hard ones, and so you can figure out what's really going on. Like what I said, like the book of Job is nothing but questions, right? And stuff like that. And so in some of those questions, he don't even give you a direct answer, and he doesn't have to, because he's God. Like he knows better than all of us. So sometimes it's like, sometimes you don't need to know the answer. And some people get frustrated at that, and they just start dismissing God and stuff like that. People get arrogant, people get full of themselves, and they start to view themselves as as their own God and stuff like that. When it comes to like the atheist guy that you were talking to, because there's a lot of people that it's because when you really look into all this stuff, like people's discrepancies, it's always the same questions, right? It's either, if God is good, why does he let all this evil things happen?
Free will. That's the answer for that one. You can't you can't strip somebody's free will.
Yeah, but they don't.
Everybody has to have a fair shot.
But they don't want to. They don't want to hear anything like that. They want to hear. They want to hear that God is good, so he's gonna stop all the evil things from happening. But here's the thing that people don't understand: is like that day is coming. That day is coming where all this stops, because God says stop, right? And everybody gets their justice, so everybody gets their judgment and their justice as well. So and a lot of people is gonna wake up, because like if you don't believe in God now, or not sure or anything like that because you purposely reject it, right? Even if you have heard of it, have heard of who Christ is and what He's done and God and all that stuff, right? But you found other things that you believed over with, right? Over it. Um, you're gonna know the truth when you die because you're gonna see God face to face, whether you believe in Him or not.
Wait, say it again. You break it
I
up.
got a phone call. That's a Yeah. I had a phone call. No, that's an inevitability that's inescapable. Like you're gonna see God. So to me, it's like if I
We all
if
know
I
deep down
die, if
inside that there's a God.
yeah,
We all know it.
well to me if say if I die, none of it's real, and it's just an endless void when you die, right? And there's like there's nothing. Then that means that life is completely meaningless, and that there's really not a whole there's not a really like an end goal to all of this, and nothing is affected, even my belief, because it's just an endless void. I'm not going to know anything, right? Nothing is affected, right? But on the flip side, say I don't want to believe in God because I saw a documentary on YouTube called Zeitgeist that told me that the Bible has been corrupted and rewritten and extremely changed and stuff like that, even though all the evidence points the complete opposite. But a lot of people believe in that. A lot of people looked into things and they came across that information and it really stuck with them. And the way it's presented, it is presented in a way that it looks to be the truth, right? But it's not. When you because when you once you start peeling back the layers, right, you start to see the holes and you start to see like, oh shit, like they weren't being truly honest in this aspect and whatnot. My bad. I'll get on a full call. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is um but if that person die in their sins, right, for all the bad things that they did, and a lot of people don't understand that we do a lot of bad things, but there are a lot of things that we trivialize and see as so subtle that we don't think is bad, right? We don't think a lying is bad. We don't think that having a whole bunch of sexual relationships that ruin, like, literally ruins relationships or transmits disease. Like, that is the effect of having this free sex society where you just fuck anything and everything that you want to. What is the ramifications of that? You have unwanted pregnancies to the point that they're killing children inside of the mother's womb, or that the father is absent, or broken homes, broken families, and the children they grow up all fucked up. um, Men get extremely lustful to the point they can't even control their urge, so they start raping women. Women use their sexualities to gain stuff. Materialistic things. It's just all sorts of things, all sorts of ramifications or whatever. But if we were to follow God's law, which in our sinful nature seems like whack and seems boring and seems it doesn't feel good or whatever, right? But if we follow God's law, that sex is supposed to be a celebration and an intimacy between you and your significant other that you're going to be with forever, and stuff like that. It's like, if we all lived like that, then we wouldn't have all these diseases. We wouldn't have all these, babies out of wedlock that nobody wants to take care of, or they want to kill them, because they don't want to take care of them and stuff like that. It's like all of these bad things that comes with that. And but society doesn't see it that way. They're gonna always, as long as they keep God out of society, society is gonna continue to fall. And like what you said before, it's like you've seen all of the fallen civilizations before, and all of them fall is because they all got away from God. Every single one is a pattern.
It is, and this is the thing. When you sit there, you have this trying to appease everybody and not insult everybody. You know what I'm saying? Trying to people please, and then you try to be your own guy. See, they tried to shut that down. I don't know if you see, you're Puerto Rican. Have you always been here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I was born over there, but I grew up here, and but Puerto Rico is part of the U.S., but it's a little different over there. But yeah, I was raised mainly in
Have you had
Florida.
the? Do you remember excuse me, The Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah, for America.
In middle school?
Yeah. For the United States.
They took that out. They took that out.
One nation under
because they had the
God
word of
and
God
stuff
in
like
there.
that. They started banning some Bibles from some of the schools. Yeah, I mean everything is being flipped. Everything is, and that's what's really going on with the world. Is the devil's working overtime, man, to really confuse people and really get a lot of people to.
That's what he did. And somebody told me this about the devil, and this was crazy. His MO is to confuse, not to convert, but confuse. And as he's doing a bang up job doing it too.
Yeah, because he too is a entity from another realm, and he too knows he's been here since humans were created. So he sets things up, man. He plants seeds and just watch them grow, and and it'll be very crafty and very subtle things that can totally manipulate a human being to go in a completely different path in a direction and believe things, and then use that belief to spread into others, and then others start believing it. It's really crazy, and I'm thankful God, opened my eyes, because damn, it's like
it's that tingle that everybody's getting. Everybody's like, yo, I want to be my own guide. And that's what's happening. Social media is a huge part of that too. They want to be their own guide and have people worship him.
Yeah.
That's why they like that stuff. And this is being monitored. This is like the government. I was in the other space I was doing, the government basically put in billions of dollars for dating apps. Why? They want to know exactly how you function so they will be able to control you. It's easy. Like, I'm looking at people and they're just literally giving away their freedoms for convenience.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. People are like, yo, I don't want to be the outsider to say, I don't believe in this. Whatever it may be, vaccines, alternative lifestyles, whatever the case is, it don't matter.
Shaming. Yeah.
It's public shaming.
Yeah. And yeah, it's getting ridiculous.
I'll be trying to tell people, and every time I try to warn them, I'm like, not warn them, but kind of put it out there. Oh, you need to just do it because society, you know what I mean? You act like society don't have any rules. I'm like,
yeah, and everything is a societal construct and stuff like that. Like,
I'm like, society used to hang black people. What about that? That was acceptable. What you gotta say about that?
Society thought slaves, the way slaves were abused, right? Like the evil part of slavery and shit like that was okay at one point. There's some civilizations that were okay with cannibalism or sacrificing their children to one of their gods and stuff like that, and and all sorts of things. So it's like humans, we're messed up, man. We're foul, we're defiled, and
we're horrible. Any religious person that sits there and want to act like they haven't committed a sin or whatever they can, and they're perfect, they don't have nothing wrong. No. That's the first thing. That's the first thing that needs to go, because ultimately, like, we're messed up. We're fucked up. We are horrible things.
We're horrible things,
but we are also good too. Like, that's the thing. It's amazing when you could turn yourself around and then turn other people around to do a good thing. One of the things that I will say too was that it was on the news, right? And regardless of what you think about the vaccines, right? The school vaccinated a 13-year-old without the parents' consent.
See, that's why I'm afraid. I'm afraid to have kids, man.
Really, what I'm saying? And you can look at the kids and stuff like that too, and what they do in the schools. Like, you know what I mean?
It's not that. It's that. Then they're teaching them all sorts of things with different sexuality, and there's parents that is saying it's okay for their child to choose whatever gender there was, despite the
birth.
Facts. The facts. Yeah, and it's all sorts of like, bro, it's getting ridiculous. It's absolutely getting ridiculous. You're gonna be destroying the child's life, because children that grow up like that have the highest rate of suicidal.
Suicide. Yep. And
Exactly.
the funny thing is, you want to know something that's crazy? What was it? I saw a video. It was a girl, and she always was socially awkward, right? And she was just like, I don't really feel attracted to men, but I kind of do, but I kind of don't. And she was tried the whole lesbian thing, right? And then she was like, I still don't feel, you know what I mean? I still don't feel, she was beautiful. She's like, I still don't feel like comfortable with it. You know what I mean? So what she ended up doing was she got a sex change. She did the hormone therapy and everything, right? And then after she was done the hormone therapy, she realized that she didn't quite want that either. So she had to come off of the hormone therapy, grow her hair back. Her voice is permanently damaged. All for what? Because the school and everybody was saying that that's the way to go. And it wasn't, it's not going to be the way to go because there's a lot of things going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Completely misguiding and it's damaging them. Is really damaging and breaking them and it's something that's like, bro, that's like, it's not natural when you have to go out of your way to use science to mutilate yourself and go through these loops and surgeries and stuff like that. Like that's not a natural thing. You know what I mean? Like that's not like you don't have what the other sex has naturally. So
could you imagine? And I hate to say this, and everybody's going to hate me for this, but